The Strongest Sect. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 476, A Man's Promise. Sect Master Jun got his wish and invited them to my palace. When they come to Tegu Sect, they will definitely be able to intimidate Iron Sect and do unshakable, two fourth-rate sects. But this is limited to the strength of the sect, and they still have to face Iron County. At that time, they will send hundreds of thousands of troops to attack the border, and the thousands of members of Wolf Rider Hall alone will definitely not be able to compete with them. What should I do? What should I do? On the way back to the sect, Jun Changxiao was very entangled. At this moment, he finally realized the importance of strength in numbers. If he also had a large-scale army, how could he be afraid of the Iron County army? The system said, the best solution is to negotiate. Jun Chang smiled and said, as a Chinese, I can only fight to the end, never negotiate. The system said, a 6th class county, what capital does the host have to fight to the end? Besides, it added, Qingyang City is just a small place after all. At most, you can move to another mountain and continue to develop your sect. Why bother to maintain it? So, even if you speak very humanely, you are just an emotionless machine after all. Jun Chang smiled. When the Tegu sect was in trouble, the city lords led 3.6 million people and repeatedly stood on the same side with him. This is an iron buddy. Now that he and his 3.6 million people are in trouble, how can he justify the plaque with the words Iron Bones hanging in the hall? Damn it. Jun Chang laughed and said, at worst, I won't develop my sect, but will spend a lot of money to recruit soldiers and build a huge army to fight against Iron County. No matter how much it costs, Qingyang City must be saved, because this is his promise to Ziguancan. A man's promise. I understand. The system said, the host is a real man. Don't talk nonsense. Jun Chang laughed and said, hurry up and think of a way to fight against a 6th class Iron County. Hasn't the host already thought of a way? I thought of a fart. The system said, didn't the host say that he would spend a lot of money to recruit soldiers? I said at worst, I mean to risk it all. Jun Chang laughed and roared. The system said, the host must protect Qingyang City. Judging from the current situation, he can risk it all. Nimmer. Jun Chang laughed and said, I asked you to come up with ideas and find a way not to attack me. I support the host to risk it all and spend a lot of money to recruit soldiers and go to fight against the 6th class county, said the system. Can you get out? No. If Jun Changxiao could fight against the 6th class county by spending a lot of money to recruit soldiers, he would definitely do it. But the problem is that there are only 2 months. In such a short time, there is absolutely no hope to build a legion to compete with Iron County. Since you can invite my palace, why not invite some big counties? Jun Changxiao's mind suddenly opened up. There are big counties in Yangzhou, southwest that are on par with Iron County, or even stronger. Who does the host know? The system said. Jun Changxiao's eyes lit up and said, I know the head of the Long family. The strength of Qingyang City, where he is located, cannot be underestimated. The system said, find the head of the Long family and ask him to come forward as a lobbyist. Maybe we can get a settlement. Jun Changxiao was speechless. This guy, why does he always want to ask for peace? The system said bluntly, because the host's current strength is too weak. If you don't ask for peace, it will be difficult to compete with these behemoths. This sentence is very realistic and cruel. Of course, Sect Master Jun is already the king of sword and martial arts, but the overall strength of the sect is very weak. Damn it. Jun Changxiao clenched his fists tightly and said hatefully, if I am given a few more years to develop, I will make everyone bow down to me. Iron Bone Sect. Jun Changxiao returned depressed. Sect Master. Just as he sat in the hall, Li Qingyang hurried in and said, Junior sister has awakened the innate demon body. Innate demon body? Jun Changxiao's face was full of surprise. Jiangzi walked in and told him everything about Yao Mengying. So, After listening, Jun Changxiao held his chin and said, the innate demon body is very strong. Very strong. Jiangzi said, people with this kind of physique, practicing the magic way, may become a generation of demon emperor in the future. Jun Changxiao's eyes lit up and said, the little girl has such potential, which is a great thing for our Tegu sect. Good thing. Jiangzi's mouth twitched and said, Master, demon cultivators are like rats crossing the street in Xinjiang continent, and Yao Mengying has an innate demon body. If it is spread out, it will definitely bring a huge disaster. What do you mean? Jun Changxiao said. Jiangzi hurriedly told him about the demon emperor 10,000 years ago, and the demon slaughter order in the martial arts world. After Jun Changxiao learned about it, he said, it seems very serious. Jiangzi said, in the past 10,000 years, 8 people with innate demon bodies have awakened. As a result, they all died without exception, and their families and forces were also destroyed. Are demon cultivators unforgivable demons, so they are hunted down by people all over the continent? Jun Changxiao asked. Jiangzi shook his head and said, many demon cultivators are just like evil cultivators. They just do whatever they want. The reason they are hunted down is that they make some people feel insecure. Having lived in the demonic sect, he can be said to have revealed the mystery in one sentence. The most fundamental reason why demon cultivators have fallen to such a state is that the first leader of the demon emperor sect could ignore the rules of heaven and earth and forcibly enter the emperor level. All forces will naturally not tolerate someone breaking the balance and posing a threat to themselves, so they join forces to destroy them and eliminate the trouble forever. If demon cultivators are like evil cultivators, they can grow rapidly by practicing special skills, but they are still within the controllable range, and they will not suffer a catastrophic disaster. Jun Changxiao frowned and said, since they are not unforgivable people, it is a bit too much to kill them all. Jiangzi said, Master, I think for the sake of the Iron Bone Sect, it is better to let Yao Mengying practice martial arts. Afraid of being known? Jun Changxiao said. Jiangzi said, there is no impenetrable wall in this world. Once the news that Yao Mengying has an innate demon body spreads out, my Tegu sect will definitely be destroyed 100 times. Moreover, he paused, his eyes solemnly said, the one who came to destroy my sect may be a first-rate sect, or the Emperor Wu himself. Fuck. Jun Changxiao was shocked. Facing a 6th-rate county and 2 4th-rate sects, he was ready to risk his life. Facing a first-rate sect and the Emperor Wu, he would definitely die. Where is Mengying now? In the wing room. Jun Changxiao came to the inner courtyard and walked into Yao Mengying's room. The little girl was curled up in the corner with her head down. Master. Yao Mengying gently raised her head, bit her lips, and said with red eyes, are you going to drive me away? Jun Changxiao said, why should I drive you away? Yao Mengying choked and said, I have awakened the innate demon body. I'm an ominous person. I will bring disaster to the sect. Who said that? Jun Changxiao said. Yao Mengying buried her head between her legs and said, I had a dream. I dreamt that many bad guys came to the sect. My brothers and sisters all fell in a pool of blood, and the sect leader was protecting me with wounds all over his body. Those bad guys said that I was a demon and a devil, and told the sect leader not to be stubborn, and not to protect me, otherwise the Tegu sect would be wiped out. It's just a dream. Jun Changxiao came over and said gently, why take it seriously? He squatted down, raised his hand, and rested it on her little head, saying, once you are a disciple of the Tegu sect, you will be a disciple of the Tegu sect for life. As long as you are willing to stay here, I will not drive you away. Woo woo woo. Yao Mengying cried even more sadly, choking up and saying, in the dream, the sect leader also answered the bad guys in the same way, saying that I will be a disciple of the Tegu sect for life, and no one can hurt me. Chapter 477 It's just a dream. After Yao Mengying awakened her innate demon body, she was in a coma for a while, and had many bizarre dreams. The dream that she remembered most was that many people came to the Tegu sect and said that they were the remnants of the demon path, the disaster star, and the ominous person. Yao Mengying was very scared. She hid behind the headmaster, and her hands were shaking violently. The senior brothers and sisters protected her in front of her. Even though the bad guys who came were strong, she was not afraid at all. Mengying. The headmaster turned his back to her and said, "Don't be afraid, this seat and your senior brothers are here." In Yeo Mengying's dream, the headmaster Jun was still so coquettish. This sentence was also full of magic, which made Yeo Mengying, who was originally scared, gradually calm down. Later, the dream changed, and many senior brothers fell in a pool of blood. Although I didn't witness the process, I can guess that they must have fought with the bad guys. Yeo Mengying raised her head with difficulty and found that the headmaster was also injured, covered in blood, but always stood firmly in front of her. At that moment, her heart ached and tears could not stop flowing. Jun Changxiao. On the opposite side, an old man with a strong breath said in a deep voice, "Hand over the remnants of the demons behind you, and we can still let your Tegu sect go." Jun Changxiao's eyes became extremely cold and stern, and he said, "I still say the same thing. Once you are a disciple of the Tegu sect, you will be a disciple of the Tegu sect for life. No one can hurt her." Although it was just a dream, the master's words made Yeo Mengying remember them deeply in her heart. Even after waking up, she never forgot them. Speaking of which, with our master Jun's personality, if someone really came to kill his disciples, even if he was seriously injured and could not be cured, he would fight to the end. That is very likely. Fortunately, this is just a dream. Jun Changxiao rubbed Yeo Mengying's little head and said with a smile, "Little girl, don't think about it. Let Liu Wanshi make you a delicious meal later." He got up and left. After returning to the main hall, he summoned Jiangzi and others and said, "No one is allowed to spread the news about Yeo Mengying's innate demon body." Yes, the disciples got the order. Li Luoqiu said, "Master, did you gain anything from your visit to Maihua Palace?" "Palace Master Z will bring people here soon." TSK. Li Luoqiu laughed. "Master is so charismatic that he can even invite fourth-rate sects." Jun Chang laughed. "No matter how charismatic I am, how can I make Master Li join willingly? By the way," he got back to the point, "what is Zhenyang County doing recently?" When it came to business, Li Luoqiu became serious and said, "Zhenyang County is mobilizing troops recently and seems to be planning to attack other counties." Jun Chang laughed, leaning back in his chair, and said, "It just took down Huahang County and Heian County and is taking action again. Zhenyang County is really restless." Zhu Ringwei said, "Judging from the opponent's attack route, they want to take down all the counties in the southwest and establish a larger county. The other large counties just sit there and do nothing, allowing Zhenyang County to expand its territory." Jun Chang laughed. Zhu Ringwei said, "Zhenyang County has already controlled several important military bases. Even if other counties have objections, it is difficult to bring substantial threats." Jun Changxiao rubbed his temples and said, "This is really a big problem. I can't sleep or eat if it is not solved. Go. Call Xiang over." Not long after, Long Xiang entered the hall. When he learned that the head wanted to go to Langyang City for help, he shook his head and said, "Head, Langyang City is just a city and will not participate in secular wars. Even if you give money, it won't work." No. Jun Changxiao was speechless. Forget it. Forget it. Let's take it one step at a time." Jun Changxiao put aside all his worries and put his mind on cultivation. Yeo Mengying, who had awakened her innate demon body, also began to comprehend the Yijinjing. The brothers also did their best to teach her martial arts so that she could understand this method of strengthening the body more quickly. As for the evil martial arts, if you can practice it, and if you can't, don't force it. As long as the disciple's heart is in the sect, and he does not do anything unforgivable, Jun Changxiao will not care whether he is practicing the devil or the righteous way. Jiangzi has practiced evil martial arts, so he can also give Yeo Mengying some pointers. In short, this little Lalita who has awakened her innate devil body is spoiled like a jewel in the palm of the Iron Bone Sect. On the other hand, our poor closed disciple Hiwudi is completely unloved by his grandmother and grandmother. He relies on himself for cultivation, and occasionally he will be greeted by happy football. However, this guy's really talented. After practicing again for the 4th time, he broke through to the martial arts apprentice in just a few days, and his speed was faster and faster. After comprehending the Yijinjing, He began to practice various martial arts of the Tigu school and secretly exclaimed, "These martial arts look ordinary, but they are all extraordinary. It is worthy of being the birthplace of the 7 mysterious saints." Yi Xingchen always believed that Jun Changxiao came from the upper realm. He believed that the Tigu school was related to the 7 mysterious saints. Half a month passed in a flash. Li Qingyang, Xiao Zuji and other inner disciples, relying on a large number of spirit stones and spirit gathering arrays, all stepped from the 1st grade martial arts sect to the 4th grade, and the improvement was quite obvious. The outer disciples at the martial arts master level made even faster progress. For example, Li Shangshan, Sima Zongda and others. Although their qualifications were not high, they relied on a lot of resources to build up to the peak martial arts master. Because they have adapted to the 3rd floor of the training tower and have been tempering the spiritual energy in their danshan, it will be easier for them to break through the martial arts sect than Li Qingyang and others. The predecessors planted trees, and the descendants enjoyed the shade. The various measures of the Tigu sect were gradually improved, and the disciples who entered later would definitely be faster in cultivation than the disciples who entered earlier. In the past half month, He also began to enter the shaping room to shape his body. After being tortured for several hours the first time, he sat on the stairs with no desire to live, until the next day, when he felt comfortable all over, and then he began his journey of self-torture without getting tired of it. As for another close disciple, Tao Yun, he has also been integrated into the Tigu sect. In addition to practicing on weekdays, he discusses the art of war with Zhu Ringui, and is deeply impressed. Master Zhu. He bowed and said, "If you lead a legion, you will definitely be invincible in this southwest Yangzhou." The disciples have made progress, but Master Jun frowned. Because in the past half month, he has also been practicing, and has taken a lot of spirit stones and elixirs, but his realm has never made much breakthrough. The system said, the host is a sword and martial arts king, and there are 2 spirit cores in the danshan. It is several times more difficult to improve the realm than a normal martial arts king. Nima. Jun Changxiao said speechlessly, "This is a double-edged sword." Master. Li Qingyang hurriedly reported, "The master of my Alpha Palace is here with his disciples." Really? Jun Changxiao went out to greet him personally. When he wanted to shake hands with Xi Jinxian enthusiastically to show his friendship, he saw the 2 cold faces of Changsun Fanghe and Leng Xingyu, so he gave up the idea and smiled. "Master Xi, please come in. P.S. The temperature has dropped sharply recently, and the child has a fever, coughs and makes a fuss. It's really a headache. The update is not very stable. Fortunately, I can maintain 3 updates every day. As for the update at 0 o'clock, it has been cancelled for the time being." "Yes, that's right. I'm a married person and I have children. Those beautiful female readers who have a good impression of me. Unfortunately, I have someone in my heart, and those gays, you can give up. Finally, don't call me a dog anymore." Chapter 478. If you bloom, the breeze will come. Xi Jinxian brought 2,000 disciples and 4 martial king level elders, a very luxurious lidup. This also brought a feast for the eyes of the male disciples of Tigu sect. After all, they were all beautiful women. Brother, the disciples of my Alpha Palace are so beautiful. It would be great if our Tigu sect had so many girls. The disciples of Tigu sect leaned together and whispered. If those young men who were waiting at the foot of the mountain knew that the disciples of Tigu sect could appreciate the female disciples of my Alpha Palace up close, they would definitely be envious and vomit blood. Palace Master Xi. In the hall, Jun Chang smiled and said, "Jun has ordered his disciples to prepare wine and food to welcome your sect. Then I'll have to trouble Master Jun." Xi Jinxian smiled. She was wearing a sky blue gauze skirt today, and after a careful dressing, she looked even more beautiful. Jun Chang smiled and said, "If Zhenyang County invades, they will definitely attack Qingyang City. So after dinner, please ask Palace Master Xi to follow me to Qingyang City. He would never leave my Alpha Palace in the sect. After all, there are secrets that cannot be known to others." "Yes," Xi Jinxian said. Not long after, the fragrant food was prepared, and she went to the cafeteria with several elders. The female disciples who had been to Tigu sect before had bright eyes. They had eaten the food made by Liu Wanshi once, and they still had endless aftertastes. Changxiao, Fang He and others kept their faces up, looking very cold. After sitting down, some disciples had already picked up chopsticks eagerly. Changxiao Fang He gently rebuked, "How many days have you not eaten?" A female disciple whispered, "Great Elder, the dishes made by the chef of Tigu sect are simply delicacies from the mountains and the sea." Delicacies from the mountains and the sea. Changxiao Fang He snorted coldly. As an old woman who has lived for hundreds of years, what delicious food has she not eaten? She picked up the chopsticks and took a bite of the food. As a picky eater, the elder had prepared many venomous comments in his mind. Swish, swish. The disciples of Maihua Palace raised their chopsticks one after another. Changxiao Fang He did not reprimand them, because at this moment, she was slowly savoring the food in her mouth, and her facial expressions kept changing. She had eaten many delicious dishes, but after swallowing this dish, she concluded that what she had eaten before was all radish and cabbage. The lines she had prepared were also washed away by the delicious food, and all replaced with praise. Food is the first necessity of the people. Unless you are a strong person who can do fasting, it is difficult to resist the deliciousness on the tip of your tongue. How is it? Leng Xinggai next to him said. Changxiao Fang He suppressed the taste impact brought by the food and said, "You can try it." Leng Xinggai raised her chopsticks, then took a bite of the dish, and her beautiful face suddenly showed astonishment, and she was obviously shocked by the dish made by Liu Wanshi. Everyone. Jun Changxiao smiled and said, "It's just a simple meal. I'm sorry to make you laugh." The corners of Changxiao Fang He and others' mouths twitched. This kind of delicacy is described as coarse tea and light meals. What can we eat? Just as Leng Xinggai picked up a bite of food and was about to eat it, her peripheral vision swept to Wei Leo, who had just walked in from the door. Swish. She stood up and slammed the chopsticks on the table, her beautiful eyes flashing with anger, and said, "Wei King Feng." The voice was so loud that it startled everyone. Jun Changxiao raised his head and saw Leng Xinggai staring at Wei Leo and couldn't help but think, this is Wei Leo's name? He has joined the sect for a while and he doesn't even know his name. He is really incompetent as the head. Wei Leo looked at Leng Xinggai, full of surprise. After a while, he smiled gently and said, "So you joined Maihua Palace, Wei Leo?" Jun Changxiao sent a voice transmission. "Do you know this woman?" "Yes." Wei Leo replied, "She is my 35th old lover." Old lover? The 35th? The head of the Jun sect was stunned. "Wei Leo, you just threw 35 bowls of dog food at me without warning." Leng Xinggai's beautiful eyes were always filled with anger, but also mixed with a trace of undetectable resentment. This complex look was enough to show that she had an unforgettable love story with Wei Leo. "Wei King Feng," she said coldly, "the fact is that I, Leng Xinggai, can still live well without you. This is not the place to talk." Wei Leo said. "Why?" Leng Xinggai said with a cold face, "Afraid of being known. How did you, a man, break your promise?" Wei Leo was silent. "Funny me," Leng Xinggai said self-deprecatingly, "I was actually bewitched by you, a heartless man, for decades just for the words 'if you bloom, the breeze will come.' If you bloom, the breeze will come." Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched, and he immediately imagined a picture in his mind. It was a picturesque peach forest. The young Wei Leo stood in front of the young Leng Xinggai, holding a peach branch in his hand, and said very gently, "Sister Xinggai, if you bloom, the breeze will come." "Oh, my god. It's too literary and too corny." Wei Leo said bitterly, "Xinggai, do you still hate me so much?" "I hate you to the bone." Leng Xinggai gritted her teeth, and the hatred in her beautiful eyes became stronger and stronger. Wei Leo said nothing, turned around and walked out of the cafeteria. How could Leng Xinggai give up? She didn't even eat the delicious food and chased after him. When the two left, a disciple of Maihua Palace whispered, "Grand Elder, is this old man the man who hurt the second elder the most?" Changxiao Fang He said coldly, "A playboy with sweet words has deceived the second elder's feelings for decades." At this point, he glanced at Jun Changxiao intentionally or unintentionally and said, "If you take in such people, they are just birds of a feather." Sect leader Jun was speechless. Old Wen's romantic account. What does she mean by looking at me? Since I traveled to another world, although I have a little expectation for the love between men and women, I have always kept myself clean and chaste. Readers are anxiously asking who is the heroine every day, why are they birds of a feather? However, having said that, Old Wenny is a veteran in the love field. He has more than 30 ex-girlfriends alone. As a senior single dog, I must find an opportunity to ask for advice. Come. Jun Changxiao greeted. Don't stand there. Everyone eat. While speaking, he released his spiritual thoughts, locked onto Old Wenny and Leng Xingyu, and witnessed the two of them stopping in the pavilion in the lotus pond. You are worthy of being a master in the love field. Jun Changxiao said secretly. It seems that the place you find randomly is so suitable for talking about love. I'll earn it. Xingyu. Old Wenny stopped, looked at the lotus pond in front of him, sighed and said, actually, I have my own difficulties. Difficulties? Leng Xingyu sneered. Your difficulties may be too many women, right? Old Wenny raised his head at a 45-degree angle to the sky and said sadly, I, Wenny Kingfeng, am destined to drift with the wind all my life. I can't give you stability or safety, so I can only choose to leave, even if it means violating the vows we made before. Dumping someone, and still talking so literary. Not a love expert, but a love saint. Now I'm drifting with the wind. Not if I bloom, the breeze will come. Leng Xingyu said coldly. Hearing this, Jun Changxiao almost laughed out loud. Wei Lao shook his head and said, Xingyu, I thought you would know me, understand me, but in the end. He gently covered his chest and said, my heart hurts so much. Leng Xingyu said with a cold face, do you know me, understand me? Do you know how much pain I have felt in my heart during all those years of waiting for you? Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. Aren't you ashamed to say these cheesy lines that only appear in romance dramas? So, the system said, the host deserves to be single for life. Click, listen, that's the sound of a broken heart. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 479, The Leader of a Sect, Lonely for Life. Old Wenny and Leng Xingyu were talking by the lotus pond, and Sect Master Jun released his spiritual thoughts to eavesdrop. Not eavesdropping, but learning. As the saying goes, there must be a teacher among three people. In terms of feelings, Jun Changxiao is like a blank sheet of paper, and there are too many aspects that need to be consulted by Old Wenny. But, hearing those mushy words, he retreated directly. Can't learn. Sect Master Jun retracted his spiritual thoughts and said, Palace Master Z, eat more. Old Wenny was so heartbroken there. You asked him to eat more. In contrast, what the system said was not unreasonable. He deserved to be single for life. Yeah. Xingyu nodded gently and tasted it slowly. Although the food was really delicious, she always maintained the demeanor of the master of a faction. The disciples of Maihua Palace were the same. At this moment, they wanted to wolf down all the food, but because they were women, they had to remain reserved and not let people laugh at them. After a meal, Old Wenny and Leng Xingyu were still talking in the pond. However, the atmosphere was much more relaxed. Jun Changxiao admired and said, the second elder wanted to kill someone just now, but now he can calm down. Elder Wenny must have coaxed him a lot. Master Jun. Xingyu said, when are we going to Qingyang City? Now, Jun Changxiao said. After dinner, wouldn't it be better to find a place with a nice environment and chat with people? This is really hopeless. Jun Changxiao took Xingyu and the disciples of Maihua Palace to Qingyang City. Leng Xingyu stayed in the Tigu sect for the time being. It seems that she wants to completely resolve her feelings for many years. So many beautiful women in their prime suddenly poured into Qingyang City, which immediately brought a great visual impact to the people in the city. Ziguancan learned that the visitor was the palace master of Maihua Palace, and hurried to greet him in person, showing great enthusiasm. Of course, I also admire Master Jun very much in my heart. It takes so much power to invite a fourth-rate sect and let him bring so many disciples and senior officials. Or, Master Jun and Palace Master Z have already fallen in love? After settling Zi Jingxuan and a group of disciples, Zi Guankan smiled and bowed, saying, Master Jun, when can I drink a glass of your wedding wine? Wedding wine? Jun Changxiao was at a loss. Zi Guankan smiled and said, since the palace master of Maihua Palace can be invited, the relationship between you two is probably just a wedding. Don't talk nonsense. Jun Changxiao said, Palace Master Z and I are just friends. Zi Guankan showed an I understand expression on his face, and then smiled and said, I understand, I understand. Jun Changxiao knew that he had misunderstood and was too lazy to explain, so he said goodbye and returned to Tegu sect. There is still more than a month left for the exemption card, and he wants to take this opportunity to practice and strive to break through to the second level. Although he is a double king of sword and martial arts and has 2 spirit cores, his realm will be improved slowly, but as long as he can achieve substantial improvement, his combat effectiveness will skyrocket. As soon as Master Jun returned to the sect, Leng Xingyu left with red eyes, and the anger that permeated his body had completely dissipated. A meal, back and forth to Qingyang City. Old Wei solved his emotional problems? He is indeed an expert. Jun Changxiao hurried to the medicine garden. Old Wei was sitting in the pavilion at this moment, looking at the sky with a sad look and sighing. Old Wei. Jun Changxiao came over and said, are you okay? Hey. Old Wei sighed and said, I owe too many debts in this life. It must be romantic debts. Master. Old Wei said, what's the matter? Jun Changxiao sat down and said seriously, I want to discuss with Old Wei the way to pick up girls. Pick up girls? That is, the way to flirt with girls. Flirt with girls? Discuss the love between men and women. Old Wei understood and shook his head and said, the most painful thing in this world is the love between men and women. Once you fall into it, you will never recover. Why bother to discuss it? If I can be like this with Old Wei, with so many old lovers, no matter how much pain I have, I'm willing to give it a try. Master Jun said seriously. The corner of Wei Lao's mouth twitched, and he said, the headmaster still needs to develop the sect, so he must not be obsessed with love between men and women. Damn it. As the head of a sect, do I have to be lonely for the rest of my life? Moreover, Wei Lao continued, if emotional matters are not handled well, there will be endless troubles. This is definitely the most valuable experience for those who have experienced it. Seeing that he was so serious, the headmaster Jun was a little afraid, so he gave up asking about the way to pick up girls and got back to the topic of asking about the recent medicinal materials. A lot of medicinal materials for the key gathering pill and the martial master pill have been refined one after another. With the continuous supply of heaven and earth attributes, the spiritual power contained in the medicinal materials is also stronger than the previous batch. Master. Wei Lao stood in an open space outside the medicine garden and said, I plan to continue to expand the medicine garden and plant more medicinal materials. Okay. Jun Changxiao approved. During this period, Sun Bukang and other members of the medicine hall, under the careful guidance of Wei Lao, have already gained a lot of planting experience. There is no problem in maintaining a larger medicine garden together. Of course, Master Jun will not always plant the medicinal materials required for key gathering pills and martial master pills. After the expansion, he will also plant more varieties to prepare for the future in advance. After returning from the medicine garden, Jun Changxiao first practiced in the spirit gathering array for 2 hours, and then practiced on the first, second, and third floors of the training tower for 1 hour each. Night fell. He returned to the study and found that Xia Lang had curled up in the little nest and had fallen asleep. Isn't it hibernating again? Jun Changxiao muttered while opening the intermediate mall. He hadn't looked at the system mall for a while. He didn't finish looking at it after the last refresh, so his contribution points overflowed, and he just hurriedly bought a bottle of first grade elixir. Are there any other good things? Jun Changxiao continued to look down, but was disappointed. There was nothing worth buying. There are more than 4,000 contribution points left. Try refreshing again. As he said that, he pulled down fiercely. Ding. Sect contribution value. 4544/5000. The goods in the mall were replaced again. Jun Changxiao looked carefully until he saw the second row of goods and jumped up from his seat. Normally, what could make him so excited would probably be related to guns. However, it's not a gun, it's a cannon. It's called the Magic Modified Schneider 1897 75mm field cannon. Jun Changxiao exclaimed in surprise, there really is a cannon. Click to open the detailed introduction item, Magic Modified Field Cannon. Introduction, French 1897 style 75mm field gun, the world's first artillery equipped with an anti-recoil device, which shined in the First World War, and was later modified to be suitable for the high-level martial arts world. Advantages, ultra-long range and super powerful. Disadvantages, extremely consuming crystal cores, and at least one higher grade crystal core is required. Price, 2000 contribution points. Damn it. After seeing the introduction, Jun Changxiao exclaimed, really, an Italian cannon? But, 2000 contribution points, it's too expensive. The system said, if it's too expensive, the host can choose not to buy it. How can I not buy it? Zhejiang County is about to kill us. If this kind of field gun is set up in the city, a shot will definitely blow the people and horses on the opposite side to the ground, and make their scalps numb. Buy. Chapter 480 Cannon. Ding. The host spent 2000 contribution points and obtained a magic modified field cannon X1, which has been transferred to the space ring. Ding. Contribution value of the sect, 2544/5000. Jun Changxiao's mind moved, and he summoned the purchased field cannon. The muzzle is very long and has 2 wheels. The extended tail is tightly attached to the ground, which is used to reduce recoil at a glance. The tail is close to the ground, which should be used to reduce recoil. The shape of this magic modified field cannon is exactly the same as the Italian in the TV series. At the bottom of the turret, there is a fist-sized groove, which should be the place where the shells are gathered. Swish. Jun Changxiao took out the high-grade crystal core and drew the internal energy into the groove, and the gray shell icon began to light up. However, after all the energy was transferred in, the shell icon was only 1/3 bright. Fuck. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched and said, do you need 3 to gather 1 shell? The greater the power, the greater the consumption. The system said. Okay. Jun Changxiao said with a smile, I hope you won't let me down. He took out 2 more crystal cores, and only after all of them were transferred in did he successfully charge a shell. There were 2 shell icons on the turret, which meant that 2 shells could be loaded. Jun Changxiao was eager to test the power, and did not charge the second shell. He summoned Xiao Zuji and others, and pushed them directly to the back mountain. Whenever a new gun is bought, it will be tested here, just like a shooting range. Master, Xiao Zuji asked in surprise, is this a gun? Oh my god. Suzuyomo also came. He walked around the field artillery and said in surprise, the muzzle is so big, the power must be terrifying. After checking, Jun Changxiao locked onto the small mountain in the distance, clapped his hands and said, you will know after you fire a shot. Can the disciple do it? Suzuyomo's eyes suddenly became hot. Okay. Jun Chang smiled and said, go ahead. Suzuyomo came over with a beaming face, stood in front of the field artillery, and said, Master, how do you use it? Jun Chang smiled and said, click the red button. When he said this, he had already retreated several hundred meters away. Xiao Zuji, who had been shaken to the tree many times, also avoided it from a distance. Suzuyomo didn't realize that he was completely focused on the field artillery, and then rubbed his hands and directly clicked on the more eye-catching red button. Boom. The peaceful Tegu sect suddenly heard a loud boom, shaking the ground and buildings. Because the sound was too loud, the birds in the distance were shaken to the ground, and the animals were also frightened and ran around in fear. What's going on? The disciples who heard the buzzing sound in their ears looked at the back mountain in shock and saw billowing white smoke rising in the air in the distance and gradually gathered into a mushroom shape. Let's go. Let's take a look. Everyone rushed to the back mountain, and just as they walked in, they saw the field artillery and saw thick smoke coming out of the muzzle. The head and senior brother Xiao stood in the distance. The two were now confused because they were too close, and their ears were buzzing from the sound of the artillery. Someone exclaimed, "Senior Brother Su has fallen." Suzaomo fell on the grass next to the field artillery at this moment, foaming at the mouth, and his whole body was twitching violently. He was so happy just now, but now he looks like a bear. The contrast is too great. Of course, Suzaomo was not shocked by the recoil, but by the sound of the artillery. This is very tragic. Quick, quick, carry him to the medicine hall for rescue. All the disciples rushed up, carried Suzaomo, and ran to the medicine hall. Head. Leaking Guiyang's mouth twitched and said, "What happened to Junior Brother Su?" Jun Changxiao, who had just adapted to the sound of the artillery, tilted his ears and said loudly, "What did you say?" This is because his ears were temporarily deafened by the shock. Not only him, Xiao Zuji also became deaf. This situation lasted for most of the day, and the disciples had to speak loudly to talk to him. Of course, the power of field artillery is still very terrifying. The mountain 40 miles away was not only blown to pieces, but also a circular deep pit of hundreds of feet was blown out. This is not a cannon. It's almost as powerful as a missile. After Jun Changxiao's ears recovered, he stood on the edge of the deep pit and grinned. "Why are you afraid of Zhejiang County?" He was absolutely confident that once a shot was fired, not to mention how much damage would be done to the enemy, it would definitely scare the Zhejiang County army to pee their pants. The field cannon is very powerful, but its disadvantages are also obvious. It makes too much noise. If it is set up in the city, the sound of the cannon can make the civilians with no cultivation vomit blood. It can be used to deter the enemy. It is better to use it as little as possible, unless it is absolutely necessary. Jun Changxiao murmured. With the powerful wild mountain cannon, I was originally worried about how I should face the head of Zhejiang County, but I suddenly relaxed. I have the Italian cannon in my hand, and you guys are coming. After routine training, the head of Jun returned to the study and found that Xia Longlong was still sleeping, which made him sure that the little guy hibernated for the second time. I don't know what changes will happen when it wakes up. After waking up from the first hibernation, his body has grown a lot, and he can also activate the combat form to directly abuse Jiangzi, the second grade martial king. Jun Changxiao is very much looking forward to Xia Longlong's second awakening. Swipe. Open them all again. Jun Changxiao continued to browse. This refresh, the luck is not too good. There is only one Italian cannon that is really useful, and there are no martial arts, equipment, recipes and other products. The system said speechlessly, give the host a powerful field artillery, which can help the host have the confidence to fight against the army of Zhejiang County. Is this not too good luck? Jun Changxiao ignored him and continued to look down until he saw the last item, and his eyes lit up. It was an ordinary looking sack with the words Jibinkan Kun Bag written below. Click to introduce. Item. Jibinkan Kun Bag. Introduction. A special summoning treasure, which contains spirit beans, which can be used to turn beans into soldiers. Advantages. It can hold 100,000 spirit beans, which can not only transform into soldiers, but also be boiled, stewed, and fried, and taste great. Disadvantages. If the spirit beans are transformed into soldiers and die in battle, one less will be used. Price. 1000 contribution points. Level. High level holy product. Jun Changxiao said in surprise. This one seems pretty good too. More than good. The system said, it is tailor-made for the host's current dangerous situation. Jun Changxiao's biggest trouble at the moment is Zhejiang County and 2 fourth-rate sects. Zijingxian brought people to help, which can solve the sect forces, but it can't compete with a behemoth like Zhejiang County. Now with the field artillery and the Jibinkan bag, it can definitely be used to compete with it. As for the various ways to eat Lingdao in the introduction, unless your brain is kicked by a donkey, you will never try it. Bye. Sect Master Jun spent 1000 contribution points to buy the Jibinkan bag. Then, he opened the purchased mall and spent 500 contribution points to buy 5 AK-47s with the cooling CD time limit. It is difficult for guns to cause substantial damage to high-level strongmen, but it is still very effective to let disciples equip them and compete with the Zhejiang County army. No contribution points again. Looking at the remaining more than 1000 points, Sect Master Jun suddenly felt insecure. P.S. Galzi is asking for votes. Chapter 481, Sowing Beans to Create Soldiers. After buying the Jibenkayankan bag, Jun Changxiao took it out. This thing is similar to the num bag, but it has Kayankan inside, similar to a space artifact, and stores many fingernail-sized spiritual beans. Can it be eaten? He took out one, and held it in his hand. Feeling the faint spiritual power that permeated, Jun Changxiao's eyes were filled with surprise. There are only 100,000 spiritual beans. If there are casualties, it will be one less. Sect Master Jun will definitely not be willing to eat them. The system said, maybe it will have a miraculous effect. Jun Changxiao rolled his eyes and said, if you want to use it, you have to use it on the blade. It's a waste to eat it. What is considered to be used on the blade? In his opinion, if Zhenjiang County led a large army to attack, he would directly scatter beans to become soldiers and fight them to the end. But how powerful are the soldiers made of beans? Jun Changxiao came to the training ground where the Wolf Riders Hall usually practiced, and then stood on the mountain peak, and took out the Jibenkayankan bag. What is the master doing? The members of the Wolf Riders Hall who appeared in the training ground one after another looked up, puzzled. Are you here to inspect our training? Everyone must perform well and not let the master down. Good. Everyone shouted in unison, their eyes flashing with excitement. During the period when the exemption card was in effect, they always insisted on practicing and training. Not only did their elm improve significantly, but their cooperation also became more and more perfect. The average cultivation of the 1,000 Wolf Riders now has reached the level of a 7th grade martial artist. There is still 1 month before the exemption from war expires. At this rate, they can reach the level of a 9th grade martial artist. The reason for such a fast breakthrough is that Jun Changxiao gave them a lot of key condensation pills and natural spirit stones. In short, in order to face the coming storm, we must use resources to smash hard, smash wildly, and smash out a Wolf Rider Hall with the strongest combat effectiveness. Throwing beans to make soldiers. Jun Changxiao, standing on the mountain peak, shouted in a second-year manner, then controlled the Jibenkayankan bag with his mind, and waved his hand, and saw spirit beans flying out with flashing light. What is that? The members of the Wolf Riders Hall were dumbfounded. Bang, bang, bang. The spirit beans came into contact with the ground, making a slight sound, and thick white smoke rose, covering the area. Whoosh, a breeze blew, and the smoke dissipated. The members of the Wolf Riders Hall all widened their eyes, because, out of thin air, tens of thousands of soldiers wearing bright white armor and holding long weapons appeared on that open space. They stood straight, with cold eyes, giving people the feeling of divine soldiers and heavenly generals. Jun Changxiao was stunned. The soldiers transformed by the spirit beans exuded a martial arts aura, and they were all at the martial arts master level. The most exciting thing was, Master Jun could feel that he could control it at will. Turn. He said silently in his heart. The tens of thousands of soldiers standing below turned around and faced the mountain where he was, and the degree of unison in their movements was like a strictly trained honor guard. Zhu Ringwei came over and asked in surprise, Master, where did these soldiers come from? Jun Changxiao didn't explain, but smiled and said, is it okay? Very strong. Zhu Ringwei said seriously. This very strong does not refer to the soldiers' cultivation, but from their standing posture and movements, it is obvious that they are a team that has received very professional training. Come. Jun Changxiao said heroically, you command the Wolf Cavalry Hall, and I command these soldiers. Let's have a military exercise. Yes. Zhu Ringwei nodded. On the training ground, thousands of Wolf Cavalry stood in the west, and 10,000 Lingdao soldiers stood in the east, and the two sides were in a stalemate. Swish. Zhu Ringwei waved the battle flag. Zhang Yi shouted, and led the members, to ride the Hurricane Wolf to kill. The training in these 2 months is indeed remarkable. The strength of the Wolf Cavalry is definitely much stronger than before. If they fight with the Tiger Power Army led by Tao Yuan again, let alone 30,000, even 50,000 can be easily crushed. Attack. Jun Changxiao's mind moved and issued an order. Trample. 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 Under control, the 10,000 Lingdao soldiers marched with their spears in hand, changing their positions one after another, and finally formed an arc-shaped square formation. This. Zhu Ringwei was dumbfounded. A team of 10,000 people could change frequently and finally form a formation suitable for fighting cavalry. This was incredible. If it were me, I would never be able to do it. No matter how perfect the coordination was, it would take time to complete. The continuous changes during the march would easily lead to mistakes, making the formation messy. What the 5-star general could not do, Jun Changxiao could do. Because the 10,000 Lingdao soldiers looked like people, but in fact they were nothing more than puppets. As long as he had a thought, he would strictly execute the next action. Standing on the mountain peak, commanding the view, not only can he perfectly control tens of thousands of soldiers, but he can also make the most timely layout according to the enemy's situation. Zhu Ringwei must use the battle flag to coordinate the overall situation. Jun Changxiao is like playing a strategy battle game. He can control the soldiers by pulling the mouse. There is no comparison. Swish, swish. Zhang Yi led the members to rush over. They did not use weapons, but performed die cut, forming dense crescent-shaped streamers. Because it was a military exercise, there was no need to use real power, and the power was suppressed. However, thousands of streamers bombarded the Lingdao soldiers who were moving forward, but only heard a bang bang sound, which could not stop them from moving forward. That feeling was like a copper wall and iron wall. Jun Changxiao was surprised and said, "Is the defense so high? These soldiers can act synchronously according to their own thoughts. Can they use martial arts?" Thinking of this, he quickly evolved the eye-cut action in his sea of consciousness. Swish, swish. 10,000 soldiers retracted their weapons, and under the order of their master, they raised their left hands and slashed out one after another. Not good. Zhang Yi shouted, "Hold the shield." Swish, swish. The wolf cavalry raised their iron shields one after another, and instantly withstood the bombardment of tens of thousands of slashes. For a time, the training ground was full of spiritual power and dust. The spiritual bean soldiers were only martial artists, and the power of their slashes was not too strong, and they did not shake the members of the Wolf Riders Hall. However, this made Jun Changxiao very happy. Under his control, they can use martial arts and martial arts. This is not a spiritual bean soldier. This is just like his own clone. The system said, the host can control the spiritual beans at will, and it is not an exaggeration to say that it is a clone. Ha ha ha. Jun Changxiao raised his head and laughed. He can control it at will, and use various martial arts. If he goes to the battlefield, how can he be afraid of Zhejiang County? What's more, there are still 90,000 spiritual beans in the Jibankiangkan bag. This is to scatter beans to form soldiers, and line them up outside Qingyang City. Even if they face hundreds of thousands of enemy troops, they will never be afraid. Suppressing his excitement, Sect Master Jun continued to manipulate the spirit bean soldiers, and fought against thousands of wolf cavalrymen. Because of their strong defense and the ability to display martial arts, they suppressed them in a head-on confrontation. This battle lasted for half an hour. Zhang Yi and the members of the Wolf Riders Hall were extremely depressed. The martial arts that I know, these soldiers also know, and there are more of them, so they didn't take any advantage at all. The most shocked person was Tao Yuan, who was watching the battle from a distance. He had seen the strength of the Wolf Riders Hall, but he never expected that there was such an elite division of 10,000 people in the sect. If the county governor has plans to attack Qingyang County, if Digu participates in the battle, it will be difficult to win. Tao Yuan said secretly. At this moment, he prayed in his heart that Zhejiang County did not plan to swallow Qingyang County, otherwise he would be in a dilemma as a disciple of the sect and a general in the county. What a pity. Tao Yuan, who had lost his memory, did not know that Zhejiang County had plans to swallow up Qingyang County, and that he had even sent troops to fight. Chapter 482. The war is coming. Master, Zhu Ringwei exclaimed, these soldiers are like divine soldiers and heavenly generals. Jun Chang smiled and said, if there are more soldiers, what are the chances of winning a battle with Zhejiang County? If there are about 100,000 well-trained soldiers like this, not to mention that we can fight Zhejiang County head-on, it is absolutely safe to defend Qingyang City. Zhu Ringwei said seriously. Really? Jun Chang smiled. The soldiers transformed by the spirit beams can be controlled at will and can also perform martial arts. They are definitely very tough. which also gives him more confidence to fight against Zhejiang County. Continue to practice the Wolf Rider Hall and don't relax at all. Jun Chang smiled and ordered. Yes. Zhu Ringwei was very puzzled. Tao Yuan was captured and joined the Iron Bone Sect. Why did Zhejiang County still not make any moves? He didn't know that this was because of the exemption card. After returning to the sect, Master Jun began to continue practicing, and he must break through to the second grade sword and martial arts double king within a month. At this moment, he was not sad at all, and he was not entangled at all, even expecting Zhejiang County to lead a large army to kill them, so that they can see what a real elite division is. 1 month later, the exemption card expired, and Zhejiang County gradually recovered its suspended memory. Strange. In the secret room of Lingyuan sect, the returning martial emperor said in confusion, "Why am I in the sect?" When the chaotic memory gradually adjusted, he suddenly remembered that he was ordered by the sect master to go to Qingyang County and found the murderer who killed Zhuang Yang. However, when he used the power of heaven and earth and gathered his big hand to kill him, a stream of light came down from the sky, and then, the more the martial emperor thought about it, the clearer it became, and the more he thought about it, the more his hair stood up. At that time, the power that fell was very terrifying, so terrifying that he was like a weak ant. When he Wudi appeared from the void, his own cultivation was still in a state of crazy degradation. Even so, it was definitely not something that the martial king of Xinjiang continent could contend with. This Lingyuan sect strongman should be thankful that when the opponent fell, his cultivation had greatly degraded. Otherwise he would have been killed on the spot if he was hit hard. That seems to be a person. Could it be that the guy invited reinforcement? Or is there a stronger existence in Zhejiang County? The martial emperor showed fear. Grand Elder. At this moment, the Lingyuan sect master said in a voice transmission, "Please come to the hall quickly." It turned out that this martial emperor was the Grand Elder of the Lingyuan sect. No wonder his cultivation was so strong. In the hall, the Lingyuan sect master, who was about 70 years old, sat in the first seat, with anger on his old face. There were also many elders sitting in the lower seats, but their strength was still a little different from that of the high-level officials of Myotha Palace. "Sect Master," an elder said with a cold face, "Elder Shu and Elder Zhuang died in Qingyang County. They must be severely punished." Another elder said coldly, "Although I don't know who did it, since they died in Qingyang County, let the entire county be buried with the dead elders." The death of 2 martial kings made the Lingyuan sect's high-level officials very angry. Just as they were filled with righteous indignation, the great elder walked in, and everyone stood up and saluted. "Sect Master." The great elder sat down and said solemnly, "There may be a master with unfathomable strength in Zhejiang County." Everyone was surprised. The Lingyuan sect's sect master said, "Why do you think so?" The great elder hurriedly told him that he was attacked in the wild. The sect master and the elders were silent. The attack came unexpectedly, and even the martial emperor couldn't dodge. This strength must be terrifying. Could it be a martial saint? The Lingyuan sect's sect master frowned. The grand elder shook his head and said, "It's hard to say." Just as the Lingyuan sect leader was about to speak, a disciple walked in and said, "Sect leader, the county governor has sent a letter." Oh. He hurriedly took it, opened it and said in a deep voice, "The county governor wants to attack Qingyang County," and asked Lingyuan sect to send someone to accompany him. Without hearing what the grand elder said, everyone would definitely respond. Now, there is a suspected martial saint level strongman in Qingyang County, so everyone hesitated. "Hey." The Lingyuan sect leader sighed and said, "Since my Lingyuan sect has placed its bet on Zhejiang County, it will naturally try its best to cooperate." He said, "Third elder, fourth elder, you can take a few hundred disciples with you." Yes. The third elder and the fourth elder took the order and led their disciples down the mountain. As for the grand elder, he chose to continue his retreat because he was afraid of the strong man who attacked him. In this way, he Wudi came across the void and not only rescued sect leader Jun, but also successfully restricted a martial emperor level strongman. After the exemption from war was invalidated, the Zhejiang County naturally remembered that Tao Yuan was defeated and captured. Huaiyang County and Heian County were captured, and Qingyang County actually lost young generals. It must be difficult to accept an elite division. The county governor immediately ordered to mobilize 300,000 troops to attack Qingyang County. He not only notified Lingyuan Sect, but also notified Duanshu Pavilion. The other party also sent 2 Wuwang elders and hundreds of disciples. 2 days later, everyone gathered in a city in Heian County, and 300,000 troops and many masters rushed over. Master Liluo Qiu, who received the news from the Tegu sect, frowned and said, "The Zhejiang County army will arrive at Qingyang City in 3 days." Finally, Jun Changxiao hurriedly dispatched the Wolf Riders Hall and disciples to let them go to Tegu City as quickly as possible. As for Tao Yun, who had recovered his memory, he locked himself in the wing room, his eyes filled with complicated emotions. "I was captured. I became a disciple of the Tegu sect. Who can tell me what is going on?" Jun Changxiao knew that he needed time to accept the reality, so he didn't bother him. He handed the sect affairs to Liluo Qiu and went to Qingyang City. "Master Jun." On the tower, Zijingxuan said in surprise, "Your aura seems to be stronger than before." In the past month, Jun Changxiao has been practicing behind closed doors. With enough natural spirit stones and key gathering pills, he finally stepped from the first grade to the second grade. Before coming to Qingyang City, he went to the training room to test his strength. The value of a punch was 4 million jin. For every level of super level Martial King, the strength increases 500,000. This guy directly reached 1 million, which is quite tough. The system once said, the host is enough to fight against the peak high level Martial King. It is understandable to fight against the lower level. At the Martial King level, it is absolutely terrifying to directly jump so many levels and compete with the peak Martial King. This is the double king of sword and martial arts. This is the double spirit core. The practice is much slower than normal martial arts, but as long as it is improved, even if it is only improved by 1 level, there will be more explosive strength. Jun Changxiao scratched his head and said, "I have a new understanding of martial arts recently, and my strength has improved a little bit." "Just a little bit?" Zijingxuan asked suspiciously. She couldn't see the light with her eyes, so she was very sharp in her spiritual perception. "Palace Master Z," Jun Changxiao said, "I have received news that Zhejiang County has sent 300,000 troops, accompanied by masters from 2 sects." He would not tell others about his breakthrough. After all, he had only been a double king for a few months, and was promoted to a higher level, which would definitely cause unnecessary suspicion. Such a large battle? Zijingxuan pondered for a moment and said, "Master Jun, my Maihua Palace can help your sect share the people from the 2 sects, but as for the 300,000 troops, we can't do anything." Jun Changxiao said, "Palace Master Z only needs to contain the masters from the 2 sects, and leave the rest to my Tegu sect. Zhejiang County is a large and brave county. Are you sure you can compete with them?" Zijingxuan asked curiously. Jun Changxiao put his hands behind his back, looked at the battlefield outside, and said coldly, "Not only am I sure, I will also make those who invade Qingyang City pay the most painful price." His voice was cold and murderous. It can be seen that soon, there will be a killing battle that will shock the world. Chapter 483, King Wu. Instant kill. A few days later, Beiruhu, a famous general from Yangzhou in the southwest, led the White Tiger Corps and came to Qingyang City in a mighty manner. What does it mean to have 300,000 troops pressing on the border? Looking from the tower of Qingyang City, there was a dark mass in the distance, like a wave, that was difficult to retreat. These soldiers practiced martial arts and released their cultivation together, forming a mighty force that seemed to shake half of the sky. Although the people in the city did not witness the scene of the army pressing on the border, they were all trembling with fear after feeling the cold and fierce momentum coming from afar. In front of such a battle-hardened army, ordinary mortals are really like weeds. Even Ziguancan, who was standing on the tower, swallowed his saliva uncontrollably when he looked at the dark soldiers in front of him. If it weren't for the head of the Jun sect who was responsible for guarding the city, he really didn't have the courage to face such a huge army. Zhu Ringwei looked indifferent. As a 5-star general, let alone 300,000, even 1,000,000 troops have been seen. TSK. Suzai almost sat on the city wall and grinned. It looks scary. With so many soldiers, if we go in and kick them randomly, we will definitely kill a lot of them. Li Fen's eyes flashed with fighting spirit, and he wished he could rush into the enemy group right now, use his golden right foot, and kill them happily. Crack. Shanqi clenched his fist and said, I can't wait. For 3 months, they have been practicing with spirit stones and key gathering pills, and their realm has been greatly improved. They really want to try their hands on the soldiers of Zhejiang County. Zhu Ringwei is not afraid, because he has seen the world. Su Xiaomo, Li Fei and others are not afraid either, because their courage has long been tempered, and they will not change their faces, even if they are in desperate situations. This is the disciple of the Iron Bone Sect. This is the Iron Bone Sect. Standing on the city wall, there are not only inner disciples, but also outer disciples, such as Song Zuanzhao, Lin Jianghang, Li Shangshan, Cui Bujian, Sima Zhangda and others. Except for a small number of disciples who are responsible for taking care of daily affairs in the sect, or those who can come have come, and they can be said to have come out in full force. He Wudi is here too. At this moment, he has already entered the 6th grade martial arts master. He has lost his memory 3 times, and wasted 3 times of training. He has reached this level in just over a month. He is worthy of being the last disciple of the Strongest Sect. As for our sect master Jun, he is still lying on the tower with a charming smile on his face. I didn't expect Zhejiang County to send so many people. Looking at the army outside, Changsan Fanghua frowned. In her opinion, Zhejiang County sent a large army this time, and it must take Qingyang County to expand its territory. Leng Xingyu said lightly, even if we hold back 2 4th grade sects, the Tigu sect will never be able to defend Qingyang City. Jingxiao smiled and said, Elder Leng, don't jump to conclusions. Although the situation is not comparable between the Tigu sect and the Zhejiang County, she still believes in sect master Jun. Outside the city, Beiruhu, wearing armor, rode a tall horse, and stood among the army. His eyes were sharp. The supreme commander of the White Tiger Corps, and one of the 10 famous generals of Yangzhou in the southwest, must have a strong aura of a veteran of the battlefield. A general with the same rank as Tao Yuan, looking at the disciples of the Tigu school lined up on the tower, sneered, with so few people guarding the city, don't you take our White Tiger Corps seriously? General Tao is the same. The young general next to him said lightly, too much to lose to such a low-level city, and became a prisoner. In my opinion. Someone said, General Tao is afraid that he has surrendered. Tao Yuan is the youngest general in the White Tiger Corps, and has very strong military talents. Many people are naturally unhappy. Now that he has been captured, and there is no news, they must be good at kicking him when he is down. Even Beiruhu, when he learned that Tao Yuan was defeated and captured, he was angry on the surface, but he was actually relieved in his heart. Recently, the county magistrate admired this person very much. He was very worried whether he would replace his position in the future. Now, he has lost the battle and become a prisoner. That is a lifelong stain, and it is difficult for the county magistrate to reuse him. Sure enough, as Zhu Ringwei said, Beiruhu is narrow-minded. A rising star in the military, Tao Yuan, under his command, will definitely be tripped up by Beiruhu in the future, even if he does not lose to Jun Changxiao. General Bei, the 3rd elder of Lingyuan sect, came over and said solemnly, the one standing in front of the tower is the palace master of Maihua Palace. Beiruhu was surprised and said, a 4th-rate sect in Zhejiang County? How could it be in Qingyang City? The 3rd elder said, maybe it is a helper invited by Qingyang County. Humph. Beiruhu sneered and said, could it be that Maihua Palace is going to get involved in secular wars? This is what he said. It seems that Lingyuan sect and Duanshu Pavilion are not involved in secular wars. The 3rd elder said solemnly, Maihua Palace is very powerful, especially the young new palace master, who is even called a wonderful woman. Although Lingyuan sect is at the same level as Maihua Palace, it is far behind in overall strength. What's more, standing next to Jingxiao were 2 peak martial kings. If the martial kings sent by Lingyuan sect and Duanshu Pavilion dared to come to the city and shout, they would be taught a lesson in a minute. This time, Zhejiang County sent 2 masters to accompany them, hoping to use their powerful strength to deter them, but the other side had a stronger existence, which was meaningless. Beiruhu didn't care. These martial kings were just icing on the cake. To truly take down Qingyang City and even the entire Qingyang County, he had to rely on his own army. "Thank you, City Lord." He mobilized his energy in his dantian and shouted, "For the sake of the people in the city, give up resistance." Swoosh! As soon as the voice fell, a stream of light burst out. The fourth elder of Lingyuan sect flew up and formed a defensive air wall in front of him to block the bullet. What kind of hidden weapon is this? The fourth elder landed and steadied himself, his eyes full of surprise. If it weren't for the full activation of his spiritual thoughts, he would not be able to accurately capture the burst of light with his naked eyes, let alone release an air wall to resist it. Xiao Zuji on the sentry post put down his AWM sniper rifle and shook his head helplessly. With the king of martial arts here, it is difficult for him to hurt the enemy. Jun Changxiao stood up from the roof and said with a smile, "Listen up, everyone on the opposite side. Qingyang City is now guarded by my Tigu sect." Tigu sect? Beiruhu and many generals sneered. The fourth elder of Gyuan sect said in a deep voice, "It is ridiculous that the small Tigu sect dares to get involved in secular wars." Jun Changxiao flew out with the Zhangyan step and landed on the opposite side of the 300,000 troops. He pointed at the king of martial arts and said, "Old man, you seem to look down on my Tigu sect. Come on, fight with me." How arrogant is it for one person to declare war in front of so many people? The fourth elder of Gyuan sect said disdainfully, "This seat? Could it be that you are Jun Changxiao, the head of the Tigu sect?" As soon as the voice fell, his face suddenly changed, because the young man was filled with a special aura, which turned into a powerful pressure, and pressed towards him. The fourth elder wanted to dodge, but under the sword force of Lingji and Shenju, his body not only moved slowly, but also gradually froze, and finally could not move at all. "Old man." Jun Changxiao raised his hand, and the red light gathered at his fingertips. He said coldly, "This is the fate of looking down on my Tigu sect." Swish, the 7 mysterious clouds were displayed, and turned into a beam of light and shot away. "No." The fourth elder of Lingyuan sect was shocked. Puff. But just after shouting a word, his chest was ruthlessly pierced by the red beam of light, and his thoughts were immediately disconnected from the sea of consciousness, and his pupils became dim. Zhangsan Fanghe and Leng Xingaiu looked in disbelief, and Beiruhu and the 2 sect masters also widened their eyes. Second grade Wu Wang. He was killed by him, in seconds. P.S. Please vote. Chapter 484, 1 vs 3. The noisy fourth elder of Lingyuan sect was killed instantly by Jun Changxiao with the 7 mysterious clouds. Beiruhu and others suddenly widened their eyes. Changsan Fanghe and Leng Xingaiu standing on the tower were stunned. That guy killed the second grade Wu Wang. It was too easy. There was no way. Under the suppression of the sword force, the fourth elder of Lingyuan sect could not dodge at all, and could not resist, so he could only stand there and die. In Kangshan sect, Jun Changxiao used the sword force for the first time, and could only barely restrain the Wu Wang. Now that his cultivation has improved, his understanding of the sword is deeper. Facing the low-level Wu Wang, he burst out again, which is definitely comparable to the key domain of the Wu Emperor. Plop. The fourth elder of Lingyuan sect fell to the ground. Elder Wang. The third elder of Lingyuan sect looked at Jun Changxiao with bloodshot eyes, and a strong killing intent appeared in his eyes. "Any objections?" Jun Changxiao said. "Come, let's fight." "Very crazy. Very arrogant." The third elder of Lingyuan sect said in a deep voice, "Boy, if you kill someone from Lingyuan sect, we will fight to the death." Although he was angry, he was quite rational. This boy was very strong to kill the fourth elder in seconds. If he went to fight blindly, it would definitely be dangerous, so he could only speak harshly. Jun Changxiao shrugged and said indifferently, "It's not like I haven't killed before. Do you think I'm afraid? It's not like I haven't killed before." The third elder of Gyuan sect was stunned, and then he remembered something, and said in surprise, "Elder Shu and Elder Zuan were killed by you?" Jun Changxiao said in surprise, "You don't know?" In his opinion, he was chased by the martial emperor of Lingyuan sect, and his identity should have been exposed. It was for this reason that he flew out directly and killed the fourth elder in seconds. Anyway, there was a grudge, and he had already killed 2, so it didn't matter if he killed one more. In fact, Lingyuan Sect did not know who the murderer was for the time being. Although the Great Elder had seen him, he did not know his true identity. The eyes of the two martial kings of Duanshu Pavilion also showed anger and murderous intent. One of his elders and many disciples went to Kangshan Sect with the people of Lingyuan Sect, but they never came back. They must have been killed by him. The three martial kings looked at each other angrily. Jun Changxiao said, "You are so angry. Let's put it this way." He paused and said, "Don't say that I'm bullying you. The three of you can come together. Challenging three martial kings alone. This is really arrogant. Arrogant." The eyes of the elders of the two sects became even more angry. Being despised by a junior like this, as the king of martial arts, it must be difficult to accept. Elder Zhang, Elder Zhao, the third elder of Lingyuan Sect said in a deep voice, "Since Sect Master Jun said so, it would be rude if I don't accompany you." "That's right." Elder Zhang of Duanshu Pavilion said, "Sect Master Jun must fight 1 against 3, and we must accompany you to the end." Jun Changxiao killed the second grade martial king in seconds. None of them had the confidence to fight alone. If they came together, they would still have a lot of confidence. Swish, swish, swish. The three flew out and landed in front of the formation, bursting out their martial king cultivation. Whoosh. A gurgling and heavy momentum instantly permeated the battlefield, causing Ziguancan, who was on the tower, to tremble in his heart. Changsan Fanghua said coldly, "Fighting three martial kings alone, that kid is really arrogant." Leng Xingyu said, "Although his strength is good, he is just too young and full of vigor." Zijingxuan smiled and said, "I think that Master Jun dared to fight 3 alone, and he is a man of iron bones." Changsan Fanghua and Leng Xingyu were silent. It seems that the palace master is really fascinated by that guy and thinks that everything he does is right. Facing the three martial kings who burst out their cultivation, Jun Changxiao asked in his heart with a calm face, "What are the strengths of these three people?" The system said, 1 5th grade martial king, 2 3rd grade martial kings. In this way, it is equivalent to the 11th grade martial king. Jun Changxiao said secretly, "System. Adding up their realms, this is too weird." Master Jun, the third elder of Lingyuan Sect said coldly, "Can we start?" With so many people watching, and 3 against 1, they must be careful about their manners to avoid being talked about behind their backs. "Let's start." Jun Changxiao said with his hands behind his back, "I'll let you make the first move." This is really arrogant. Changsan Fanghua and Leng Xingyu, who were already unhappy with him, rolled their eyes and secretly thought that such an arrogant young man would fall sooner or later. It doesn't have to be sooner or later, it's now. The three martial kings will definitely beat him to a pulp. The eyes of the elders of Lingyuan Sect flashed with anger, and they winked at the two elders of Duanshu Pavilion, and then they each displayed their martial arts, and suddenly gathered colorful spiritual energy. Whoosh, the spiritual energy surged, and the wind whistled. The three martial kings worked together, and the momentum was huge. The soldiers of the White Tiger Legion standing at the forefront were frightened, and then they unconsciously stepped back more than 10 steps. They were worried that they would be affected by the residual power and die. Throughout the ages, there have been many little ghosts who have suffered because of the fights between gods. Go. The third elder of Lingyuan Sect shouted. At the same time, he first rushed over with his body skills, and his fists, under the infusion of spiritual energy, instantly blasted dozens of punches in the void. Tyrant Hidden Fist. The ultimate beginner's fist technique. Whoosh. The dense fist shadows formed an overwhelming force and pressed forward. As soon as the elders of Lingyuan Sect started to move, the two elders of Duanshu Pavilion also stepped forward quickly, and then gathered spiritual energy in 2 directions to blast over. Whoosh, whoosh. 2 strong energies turned into streams of light like sword energy. This is the unique martial art of Duanshu Pavilion. Although it is not as good as Tyrant Hidden Fist in terms of level, it is also a rare spiritual power martial art. Boom, 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 bang, bang. The dense fist prints first blasted towards Jun Changxiao. Under the energy explosion, a burst of gas mist suddenly rose. The 2 sword drawing and water breaking moves that followed rolled up dust that covered the sky and the sun. Hiss. Many soldiers gasped. If they were to resist this kind of power, they would definitely be blasted into a meat paste. Changsan Fanghua and Leng Xingyu shook their heads together. 3 kinds of martial arts came from 3 different positions, but that guy stood still. Did he think that he could use the spiritual energy wall to resist? A 5th grade martial king and 2 3rd grade martial kings. The combined power of their explosions must be at least 6 or 7 million jin. Even the peak martial kings may not be able to withstand it. Gradually, the dust dissipated. Jun Changxiao's figure gradually appeared. Still standing there, Changsun Fanghe and Leng Xingaiu looked at each other in surprise. Even if the spiritual energy wall can withstand the bombardment of 3 martial kings, they should at least take a few steps back, right? What does standing still mean? Huh. A gust of wind blew away the thin mist, and it was clear that Jun Changxiao was not only standing there, but also wearing red armor all over his body, which was very majestic and powerful. This, Changsun Fanghe and Leng Xingaiu were stunned. They looked at the armor on Jun Changxiao's body, and it was hard to determine for a while whether it was equipment or a treasure. Chapter 485. The Tegu sect is here. Qingyang City is here. The 3 martial kings attacked together, and their power was very strong. But Jun Changxiao's armor, which was condensed by the spirit armor, had a very high defense type, and could withstand it all. Because of his mood, this guy also turned into a red color, which looked too bright. The 3 martial kings of the 2 sects frowned. They knew that this boy was strong, and he used his trump card as soon as he attacked. As a result, he not only did not hurt anyone, but he also failed to repel the enemy. This was very hurtful to his self-esteem. Swish. Jun Changxiao raised his hand and said with a smile, "It's my turn to attack." Whoosh. The special energy existing between heaven and earth was extracted and gathered into a red light ball in his palm. The armor was red. The attribute was also red. At that moment, Sect Master Jun was more dazzling than the sun in the sky. The faces of the 3 martial kings suddenly changed. The elder Wang just now was directly pierced through the chest by this energy. Use the 7 mysterious clouds break again. He Wudi on the wall secretly said, "This move consumes a lot of spiritual energy. Isn't he afraid of exhausting himself?" No. Dual core drive. Sufficient energy. The target of Jun Changxiao's palm is elder son of the broken water pavilion. At this moment, beads of sweat have already seeped out of his forehead. The 2nd grade martial king was killed instantly by this move. Although he is a 3rd grade martial king, he certainly can't stand it. Snap. Elder Zhang strode over, put his hands on his back, and shouted, "You and I will form a formation together." Okay. Elder son quickly cast a seal. Whoosh. The spiritual energy that emerged, and Elder Zhang's spiritual energy gathered together, and instantly formed a substantial defensive barrier in front of him. Double seal formation. Changsun Fanghe said. Leng Xingaiu said, "This seems to be a defensive martial art that has reached the middle level of the best." Yeah. Changsun Fanghe said, "That guy may not be able to shake it." Break. At this moment, Jun Changxiao said disdainfully. Swoosh. The scarlet beam of light suddenly burst out from the palm of his hand and hit the defensive barrier at a very fast speed. Bang. In an instant, the defensive barrier blessed by the 2 3rd grade martial kings was shattered into pieces in an instant, just like paper. Puff. Puff. The scarlet beam of light continued to be powerful and passed directly through Elder Sun's left shoulder. Elder Zhang behind him was also inevitably penetrated by his left shoulder, breaking the barrier, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. The power of the 7 mysterious light breaker is really amazing. Seeing this, Changsun Fanghe and Leng Xingaiu widened their eyes again. The 2 came to help the Tegu sect defend Qingyang City, but they not only shocked the audience, but also got slapped in the face again and again, which was really a bit pitiful. Who? At this moment, a heavy power suddenly emerged in the sky. Jun Changxiao looked up and saw groups of spiritual energy gathering, like dark clouds pressing down on the border. The 3rd elder of Lingyuan sect, who was standing in the distance, held his hands up to the sky. The spiritual energy in his body continued to flow into the sky. After a short period of accumulation, he shouted angrily, "Mahayana destroying heaven palm." Whoosh. A big hand suddenly emerged from the gathered spiritual energy, carrying a rolling wave of air, pressing down from top to bottom. This momentum made everyone gasp. It is no exaggeration to say that when the palm print pressed down, the sky of Qingyang City became eclipsed. Jun Changxiao said lightly, "The light of fireflies." Step. He took a step forward, clenched his fists, and suddenly blasted towards the sky when the palm print was about to press down. Bang, bang, bang. After a burst of bombardment, the palm print that was pressed down was directly broken by the domineering force. Puff. The third elder of Iron Sect spurted out a mouthful of blood, and his eyes were filled with horror. The Mahayana destroying heaven palm was his strongest trump card, and he began to accumulate power when the opponent attacked the Wu-Wang of Duanshu Pavilion, but it was broken just like that. Swish. Jun Changxiao stepped on the cloud-splitting step and appeared in front of him, saying coldly, "Don't struggle." Whoosh. The mountain collapse and earth-cracking fist was used again, and the powerful fist print spread out and suddenly launched a violent bombardment. The whole process was like lightning. Only Changsan Fanghe and Leng Xinggai were able to keep up with Jun Changxiao's actions and his fist speed. Bang, 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 bang. Facing the violent bombardment, the three elders of Iron Sect were beaten back frequently, and the expressions on their faces kept changing, and finally fixed on extreme pain. Until Master Jun retracted his fist, he had retreated dozens of steps, and when he stabilized his body, he fell to the ground with blood gushing out. The corners of Changsan Fanghe and Leng Xinggai's mouths twitched slightly. 3 martial kings, 2 were injured, and 1 was abused. This guy's too strong. If the 2 knew that Master Jun never used his full strength, they would definitely be more shocked. You can say that. With his current strength, let alone the 5th grade Martial King, even the 7th and 8th grade Martial Kings can be abused without any mistakes. My god. City Lord Z said in his heart, Master Jun, it's so terrifying. The disciples of the Tigu sect raised their heads and chests one by one. Obviously, the strength shown by the master made them proud. It's meaningless. Jun Changxiao looked at Beiruhu, who was stunned in the distance, and said, "Let's order the siege as soon as possible." With a wave of his long sleeves, he flew over the tower. The 3 martial kings of Iron Sect and Duanshu Pavilion retreated in embarrassment despite their injuries. Jun Changxiao had no intention of taking their lives, otherwise, they would have become corpses with residual heat at this moment. Master Jun. Beiruhu said in a deep voice, "Does your Tigu sect really want to participate in the war and defend Qingyang City?" Although he was shocked by Jun Changxiao's powerful strength, according to the regulations, the king of martial arts was not allowed to participate in secular wars. Why? Because the king of martial arts' level is too terrifying, and he can kill tens of thousands of soldiers with a wave of his hand. Jun Changxiao, who had just landed in front of the tower, said, "As long as the Tigu sect is there, Qingyang City is there." The voice echoed in the air. Millions of people hiding in the city were soothed by his words. Master Jun, Ziguancan, who was standing next to him, was almost moved to tears. He cupped his hands and said, "This kindness will be remembered in my Qingyang City." Humph. Beiruhu sneered, "How can a mere sect compete with the mighty army of my Zhejiang County?" Swish. The battle flag waved. Thousands of soldiers came out pushing heavy siege vehicles. Obviously, this is the beginning of the siege. Master Zhu. Jun Chang smiled and said, "This battle is up to you." Yes. Zhu Ringwei stepped forward, waving the battle flag in his hand, and the city gate suddenly opened. The members of the Wolf Riders rode the Hurricane Wolves, and walked out step by step. Wolf Riders? Beiruhu's eyes were full of surprise. Just so few people. A general laughed disdainfully. The Zhejiang County had an army of 300,000, but the Iron Bone faction sent 1,000 Wolf Riders out of the city to fight. The gap was really a bit big. The will to break through the formation. There is death or life. Zhang Yi sacrificed the Overlord spear and shouted, "Kill, kill, kill." The Hurricane Wolf carried the members of the Wolf Riders on his back and lined up in a long snake formation to rush over. Looking down from the sky, the Zhejiang County army was like an endless sea, and the Wolf Riders who rushed over were like a lone boat. However, although there were very few people, the members of the Wolf Riders had cold eyes and a strong momentum all over their bodies. It is not enough to try to stop a chariot with a mantis arm. Beiruhu snorted coldly and waved the battle flag in his hand. Trample, trample, trample. 50,000 cavalrymen stood at the front line and gradually spread out. With this number to fight against 1,000 wolf cavalrymen, General Bei was also very cautious. "Kill." The cavalry general shouted. Trample, trample, trample. 50,000 cavalrymen immediately took action. The horses galloped wildly, the earth trembled violently, and rolled up a rolling dust, covering the sky and the sun. Swish. Ziozuji, who was standing on the sentry tower, raised the 88 type sniper rifle, one eye on the 8-fold scope, and decisively pulled the trigger. Bang, bang, bang. All 20 bullets were used up, dragging streams of light, flying past the members of the Wolf Cavalry Hall, and hitting each cavalryman with incomparable accuracy. Kill. At the same time, Zhang Yi led the members to rush in, and a cavalry battle with fewer people against more people officially kicked off. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 486 Fire. In the past 3 months, although the number of wolf riders is still only 1,000 and has not been expanded, their strength has been greatly improved, and their cultivation is all top martial artists. Sect Master Jun also spent a lot of money to take out all the natural spiritual stones dug from the mines and let them improve their cultivation. With spiritual stones, they can be promoted to the martial arts level by 2 grades in a few days. The members of the Wolf Riders are only at the martial arts level, and there are various resources to replenish them without thinking, so it is too easy to break through. The cavalry carefully built by Tao Yuan was abused before, and had no power to fight back. Now the overall strength of the Wolf Riders has been greatly improved. It is naturally more comfortable to fight against the 50,000 Iron Cavalry of the White Tiger Legion. This is not it. Zhang Yi led the crowd to kill in, like an invincible sword, rushing to where, killing where, not giving the opponent any chance to survive. After 1 round, the Iron Cavalry who wanted to surround the Wolf Cavalry suffered 3 or 4,000 casualties. During this period, they also fought back, but the members of the Wolf Riders were transformed into armor all over their bodies, armed to the teeth, and were completely a moving copper wall. Kill. Zhang Yi shouted again. Awoo. Awoo. The Hurricane Wolves showed their speed thoroughly. On the battlefield of Qingyang City, they lined up in a human shape for a while, and then in a straight line for a while, very proud. Puff, an Iron Cavalryman was pierced through the chest by the Overlord's spear, and then was picked up, and flew out of the warhorse. As soon as he fell to the ground, the Hurricane Wolf followed and trampled on him madly. Kill. Kill. The members of the Wolf Riders Hall shouted angrily, waving the Overlord's spear in their hands wildly, and one soldier after another was picked up, and killed and fell off the horse. At this moment, life is completely worthless on the battlefield. After several rounds, tens of thousands of Iron Cavalrymen were completely disrupted by the Wolf Cavalry, and everyone's eyes were filled with fear. These Iron Bone School disciples riding Hurricane Wolves and wearing armor are simply demons from hell. What's more tragic is that, not only do they have to face the Wolf Riders Hall, but they also have to face Ziozuji standing on the sentry post, because every time this guy shoots, he will take away a life, and his bullets never miss a target. Of course. Li Shangshan, who was standing on another sentry tower, was also shooting frequently. Although his skills were still very poor, at least he would not hurt his own people. Beirut, whose face was extremely ugly. The Wolf Cavalry was too strong, and his own Iron Cavalry was abused without any chance to fight back. Swish. The battle flag was waved. The follow-up 50,000 infantry rushed up. Facing this kind of Wolf Cavalry, the best way is to suppress them with numbers, and then exhaust them. Disciples, listen to my order. Jun Changxiao, who was standing on the tower, said loudly, go out of the city to meet the enemy. Yes. Suzaomo and Li Fei jumped off the tower with the Zhangyan step and rushed to the battle area impatiently. The two wanted to take action a long time ago. However, the head of the sect never gave the order and could only watch Zhang Yi and his members killing people below. Now that they were allowed to take action, they were like mad dogs that had been freed from the rope. Swish. Swish. Long Xiang, Yang Yuhe, Sima Zongda, Cui Bujian and others also rushed in. All of a sudden, nearly 2,000 disciples of the Tigu sect rushed into the battlefield. When they all burst out their cultivation, Changsan Fanghe was shocked and said in disbelief, they are all top martial artists. Leng Xingyu stared and said, "Is this a 7th-rate sect?" "Sorry." Jun Changxiao, who was standing next to him, said seriously, "My Tegu sect is now a 6th-rate, not a 7th-rate." Leng Xingyu's mouth twitched. Even if it is a 6th-rate sect, it is impossible to have more than 2,000 top martial artists. Moreover, those disciples who rushed into the enemy group and killed crazily were all 6th and 7th grade martial masters. If she knew how many natural spirit stones the Tegu sect had absorbed in the past 90 days, she would definitely understand why they had such a powerful realm. Puff, puff. Suzuomo and Li Fei relied on their speed to rush into the enemy army first, with the cold swords in their hands flashing, and soldiers fell to the ground one by one. This is really a mad dog, biting whoever he sees, without mercy. Yang Yuhe, the second meat shield, rushed in with a strong iron shield, like a bulldozer, dragging dozens of soldiers and running wildly. Long Xiang rushed in with the overlord spear. A little cold light came first, and then the spear came out like a dragon, ruthlessly harvesting the surrounding soldiers. Even the disciples who seemed to be soy sauce in the Iron Bone School, such as Sima Zongda, Cui Bujian and others, showed terrifying lethality when they killed into the enemy group. The 50,000 infantrymen who were originally planning to encircle and suppress the wolf cavalry were immediately dragged by more than 2,000 Iron Bone School disciples who rushed over. Bang, bang. My slashing light was flashing, and the mountain collapse and earth-cracking fist was whistling. All kinds of gorgeous energy burst out together, and the picture was spectacular. In front of the fierce Iron Bone School disciples, the soldiers of the White Tiger Legion were like weeds being harvested in rows. Beirut, whose face changed again and again, becoming more and more ugly. Finally, the battle flag was waved again, and another 50,000 infantry rushed over. "You are strong." This general relies on the human seed tactics to achieve a complete crushing. "Master." Zhu Ringwei frowned and said, "It's not good. After all, the Tegu sect is weak, and it is difficult to compete with hundreds of thousands of troops." Jun Chang smiled and said, "Let them all retreat." Swish. The battle flag waved. Zhang Yi received the instruction and immediately shouted, "Retreat." Swish. Swish. The members of the Wolf Riders returned to the city on their hurricane wolves without any lingering desire to fight. Suzuomo, Li Fei and others also returned to Qingyang City after killing many soldiers. Soon, only the soldiers of the White Tiger Corps were left on the battlefield. Judging from the corpses on the ground, at least more than 20,000 people died in a short period of time. As for the Iron Bone Sect, because of its strong strength and excellent equipment, none of its disciples died in battle. Of course, some people were injured. After all, after rushing into the crowd, if you are not careful, you will be bombarded by dozens of people. You will definitely not be able to bear it for a long time. Damn it. Yang Yuhe, who returned to the city, grinned and said, "It hurts so much." His clothes on his back were all torn, and the soft silk armor revealed had traces of various weapons and martial arts attacks. Huh. Sima Zongda gasped and said, "Fortunately, the master asked us to retreat in time. Otherwise, if we were really surrounded, even if we were not killed, we would be exhausted to death." Changsan Fanghua said lightly, "Master Jun, although your disciples are quite strong, there is no hope for them to defend Qingyang City. This is by no means to underestimate the Tegu sect, but to seek truth from facts. Thousands of disciples, even if they are all peak martial artists, have their limits. How can they fight against an army of 300,000? Zi Guangqin was also a little worried. The disciples of the Tegu sect were already very tired after charging for one round. If Master Jun didn't have a backup plan, how would he fight the enemy next? Don't worry, don't worry. Jun Changxiao said confidently, "The good show has just begun." Xiao Zuji jumped out of the sentry tower, then stepped on the Zanga and stepped to the back, and after a few rises and falls, he stopped on a hillside outside the city, pulled off the weeds, and revealed the field artillery that had been prepared long ago. Kakaka. He controlled the steering wheel, turned the muzzle, and finally pointed it towards the east gate, and said in a voice transmission, "Master, the proofreading has been completed." Jun Changxiao said nothing, his eyes always locked on the outside of the city. Tap, tap, tap. The 100,000 strong White Tiger army marched forward, with the siege vehicles in front leading the way. Facing such a formation, it is really difficult to confront it head on without sufficient troops. Swish. A general raised the battle flag and shouted, "Attack the city. Fire." At this moment, Jun Changxiao said in a voice transmission. Xiao Zuji, who was standing in front of the field artillery, clicked on the button directly and saw flames and billowing smoke from the muzzle. Boom. The booming sound came. The walls of Qingyang City were shaken, and the buildings in the city were creaking. Changsun Fanghe and Leng Xinggai, whose faces changed. At the same time, a thing dragging a stream of light appeared in the field of vision, and then drew a beautiful arc, and landed in the Zhejiang County army that was preparing to attack the city. Boom. There was a loud bang on the battlefield, and an explosion occurred instantly, forming a very strong shockwave. Whoosh, a strong wind suddenly rose, and a thick fog appeared. The elders and disciples of Maihua Palace all stared with wide eyes, and some people's ears were buzzing. Beirut, who was even more miserable, because he was very close to the explosion point, and was directly thrown off his warhorse by the airwave, and then fell to the ground in embarrassment. He said with horror, what is this? This is a cannon, Pao cannon. Chapter 487 Elite Division, Mighty Division. After the sound of the cannon, the buildings and the ground shook violently, and it felt like a major earthquake. The people in the city were all terrified, their blood was boiling, and their ears were buzzing from the sound of the cannon. Jun Changxiao had taken good care of them, and set up the field artillery on the mountain outside the city. Otherwise, if the cannon was fired in the city, how many people would be directly shocked to vomit blood and faint? The people's strength was very low, and it was normal that they couldn't withstand the sound of the cannon. But the disciples of Maihua Palace on the city wall all had good cultivation, but they were still shocked by the sound of the cannon. The elders such as Changsun Fanghe opened their mouths. They had a high level of cultivation and could resist the impact of the sound, but they were stunned by the scene outside the city. There were originally 100,000 Zhejiang County soldiers preparing to attack the city. As a stream of light dragged down in an arc, not only a huge explosion occurred, but also a mushroom-shaped cloud rose. What is this? Could it be that a strong man just performed a very high-level martial art? Exclamation mark. Whoosh. In the explosion area, the wind howled. A stream of violent energy washed in all directions in ripples. The power of the Italian cannon was really strong. But it was also hard for Xiao Zuji. Even if he had stuffed his ears with something in advance, he was still shaken and turned around in place. Finally, he sat on the ground with a dizzy head. This was because of his strong physical fitness. If it was Su Xiaomo, she would definitely fall to the ground and twitch again. The residual power of the explosion gradually dissipated. A deep pit of hundreds of feet suddenly appeared outside Qingyang City. Hiss. Ziguangcan sucked in a breath of cold air, his eyes filled with horror. What shocked and frightened him was not only the deep pit, but also the tens of thousands of soldiers who fell outside the deep pit, bloody and mangled. There were many more outside, some of whom were killed by the residual power, and some survived by chance, but they were all seriously injured, lying on the ground groaning in pain. The most terrifying thing was inside the deep pit. There were broken pieces of armor, and scattered pieces of meat. Nearly 10,000 soldiers were in the center of the explosion, and were blown to pieces. Plop. Beirut, who had just tried to stand up, was shocked and sat on the ground again, his eyes filled with horror. 100,000 soldiers were almost wiped out by the explosion. The shock and impact it brought were too great. The soldiers of the White Tiger Legion who did not fight were so scared that their scalps burst. What on earth was a stream of light that just flew over that could produce such a terrifying destructive power? At that moment, the White Tiger Legion was terrified. The Wolf Cavalry and the disciples of the Iron Bone School also gave them a great shock, but it was far less than a cannon. After all, the lethality was too great. General Bei, Jun Chang on the tower smiled and said, "Are you satisfied?" A cannon blasted the 100,000 troops to lose their combat effectiveness. Beirut, who was not only very satisfied, but also satisfied to the point of his scalp numbing. He suppressed his fear and said in a trembling voice, "Yes. Is there a strong man above the level of Wu Wang who made a move?" Changsun Fanghe and Leng Xinggai were also thinking about this question, but finally rejected it, because when the stream of light flew over, they did not spy on the fluctuation of spiritual energy. This means that no strong man made a move nearby. Judging from the stream of light just now, it seems more like a hidden weapon. Jun Changxiao shrugged and said, your Zhejiang County has a throwing machine driven by spiritual cause, as well as a magic explosion crossbow and a siege vehicle. Mighty Gu Sect naturally has a battlefield weapon that is ingenious. Hearing this, Changsan Fanghe and Leng Xinggai were sure that the stream of light just now must be a hidden weapon. It can burst out such a powerful force. Could it be made of a high-level crystal core? The two guessed correctly. The shells are indeed condensed from crystal cores. However, the pure crystal core energy cannot form such a strong destructive power. Everything still comes from the field artillery. This modified Italian artillery can convert energy and produce higher damage. Beirut, whose face was unusually ugly. It turns out that the Tigu faction has such a strong trump card. No wonder they can remain so calm in front of their 300,000 troops. What to do? What to do? Beirut, who was bombarded by a cannon and lost his will to fight. To be precise, he became a coward. In an instant, countless people were killed and injured in the bombing of the 100,000 troops. Even a 5-star general like Zhu Ringui would be afraid. Of course. Jun Chang smiled and said, just now it was just a greeting gift. The real battle has just begun. Swish. Jumped to the roof of the tower and spread his hands. Buzz. Buzz. On the left and right sides outside Qingyang City, a streamer barrier suddenly appeared. Formation? Changsan Fanghe and Leng Xinggai looked at each other. Suddenly, they remembered that yesterday, this guy was walking around outside the city with his hands behind his back, occasionally gesturing randomly on the ground with a branch. At that time, the two of them thought, is this kid too bored? Now it seems that he is not doing boring things, but setting up a formation. How is it possible? Changsan Fanghe said in disbelief. The formation master sets up the formation seriously and carefully. That guy can form a formation by just randomly drawing? Yes. Very easily. Because the formation is the 32 formations of Kimen. General Bei. Jun Changxiao raised his hand with a smile on his lips and said, today, I will let you see what an elite division is, and what a mighty division is. Snap. The palms were tightly clenched together. Whoosh. Whoosh. The isolation formation standing on both sides outside the city suddenly disappeared, and what appeared in everyone's field of vision were soldiers wearing armor, with mighty momentum and cold eyes. The number, a total of 100,000. Sect Master Jun was afraid that directly scattering beams to form soldiers would cause a huge shock and bring unnecessary trouble to himself, so he placed the spirit beams in the isolation formation in advance. In this way, no one would think that the soldiers were transformed from beings, and they would only think that he had set an ambush outside the city in advance. Ziguangcan was dumbfounded, and then his eyes were filled with excitement. It turned out that Sect Master Jun had more than one backup plan. Changsan Fanghe and Leng Xinggai frowned and said to themselves, although these soldiers don't have the aura of martial arts, they must be extraordinary. Why do you think so? Because you can see it from their aura and eyes. Beirut, who has experienced hundreds of battles, naturally realized it. The other side has a war weapon with great lethality, and there are so many elite soldiers. This is very tricky. Withdraw. As soon as the thought came up, Jun Changxiao, who was standing on the tower, controlled 100,000 Lingdao soldiers, and walked over in neat steps. There were 50,000 troops on each side, gradually surrounding Beirut, who's less than 200,000 soldiers. Sect Master Jun is a man of both literary and martial virtues, and he will benefit the people for thousands of years, and unify the world. The Lingdao soldiers shouted in unison, and their voices rippled in the sky, and lasted for a long time. System. The soldiers shouted such slogans, which must have been conveyed by Jun Changxiao's thoughts. Does he want to order billion? You know nothing. Jun Chang laughed and said, this is momentum. The system said, this slogan is from Dongfang Bu Bei. The host should cut off the redundant things below first, and then it will meet the standard of unifying the martial arts world for thousands of years. Chapter 488, A Great Victory. A total of 100,000 Lingdao soldiers on both sides strode forward shouting slogans. The heavy voice resounded in the air, which was quite imposing. However, unifying the martial arts world for thousands of years is a bit too arrogant. Changsan Fanghe and Leng Xinggai rolled their eyes. a leader of a 6th-rate sect still wants to unify the martial arts world. His brain must have been kicked by a donkey. Jingxiao, who had never spoken, smiled and said, Master Jun wants to unify the martial arts world. The goal is so big. Because of her eye disease, her presence is not very high. However, Jingxiao could tell from her voice that the Zhejiang County army must have been frustrated. People. Jun Changxiao, who stood on the tower, raised his head 45 degrees and said proudly, you have to set a big goal, so that you have more motivation to work hard. So, this guy's skill points are all used for pretending. If he could use it to say love words, how could he still be single? TSK. Changson Fanghe and Lengxing guy who disdained to care. People need to have goals, but they should also be clear about themselves, instead of daydreaming all day long. Let's talk about the battlefield. 100,000 Lingdao soldiers have already approached. They are full of vigor and shout slogans that shake the world, which immediately frightened the soldiers of the White Tiger Legion and made them tremble. To be honest, the cannon just now hit them and left them with psychological trauma. Beirut, who also knew that morale was low at the moment, if he fought hard, he would definitely suffer heavy losses. Swish. He rode on his warhorse with difficulty and shouted, retreat. What a coward. Trample. 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 The soldiers of the White Tiger Legion had no intention of fighting. After hearing the order, they turned around and evacuated in a hurry. They retreated. They retreated. Ziguancan shouted excitedly. The attack of 300,000 troops made him ready to survive if the city survived, and now the other side's withdrawal was definitely the most satisfactory result. You come and go as you please. Do you think my Qingyang city is a market? Jun Changxiao laughed coldly and then manipulated the Lingdao soldiers to perform the Zhangyan step, blocking the retreat at full speed. Looking down from the sky, you can see that the 100,000 troops are like a big net that has surrounded the White Tiger Corps. If you want to retreat, you can only kill your way out. Master Zhu. Jun Changxiao said with a smile, let the wolf cavalry hall assist in defense. Yes. Swish. Zhu Ringwei waved the battle flag, and Zhang Yi rushed out with 1,000 wolf cavalrymen at the fastest speed again. Jun Changxiao said, don't just stand there. Yes. Su Xiaomo, Li Fei and other disciples flew down from the city wall. For a while, on the battlefield outside the city, 100,000 Lingdao soldiers surrounded the White Tiger Corps, and 1,000 wolf cavalrymen and Tegu school disciples stood in the outer circle. Jun Changxiao's meaning is very simple. You are guests. Since you have come all the way to Qingyang City, as the host, you must treat them well and make them comfortable. Marshal, we are surrounded. A general in the enemy army said with an ugly face. Beirut, who said in a deep voice, break out. Yes. Several generals immediately mobilized their forces, locked a position where they could withdraw, and then launched an offensive. Once the soldiers were dispersed, their strength would definitely be limited. But the White Tiger Corps was desperate. The 10,000 soldiers responsible for the breakout fought with the 1,000 Lingdao soldiers at the breakout point, and they were killed miserably. Boom. Boom. The energy of my slash burst out crazily, and the broken limbs and arms flew all over the sky. After one round, the 10,000 who broke through were released, and 3,000 to 5,000 people were killed. At the same time, the Lingdao soldiers surrounding nearby also began to perform my slash on a large scale. So many people condensed, so many crescent-shaped streamers. The picture was really shocking. Fuck. Su Xiaomo, who was standing outside, opened her mouth in shock. It turns out that so many people performing my slash will form such a magnificent scene. Li Fei exclaimed. Swish. Swish. Boom. 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 Jun Changxiao controlled the Lingdao soldiers and kept using the eye slash. This is definitely a swindler. So what if he's a swindler? On the battlefield, no one will fight openly as long as they can win. Plop. Plop. The trapped soldiers of the White Tiger Legion were just pitiful targets who were passively beaten. Beirut, who was protected by several generals. He watched his men fall one by one, his eyes filled with anger, but he was powerless. At this moment, he just wanted to leave as soon as possible and return to Zhejiang County as soon as possible. Whoosh, the stream of light flew over and directly pierced the general who was protecting him, and blood splashed on Beirut, whose helmet. Whoosh. Whoosh, whoosh. Several more streams of light flew over in succession, and all the generals who were protecting him were shot dead. Beirut, who was furious. Swish. At this moment, a figure rushed over from the layers of soldiers, then stopped in front of him, grinned and said, "Capture the leader first." Suzumo shifted her body, went around the back, and kicked him in the butt. Beirut, who was also quite strong, having reached the level of a 6th rank martial master, but he still couldn't withstand the force of the kick, and was kicked directly into the sky. "Marshal!" all the soldiers exclaimed in unison. "Watch me." Li Fei dropped his toes, performed the cloud step, jumped up more than 20 feet, and then leveled himself with the landing Beirut, and did a hook kick, directly kicking the opponent out like a ball. "Junior brother Yang, catch it." "Okay." Tap tap tap. Yang Yuhe, who was standing on the periphery, retracted the iron shield and ran wildly towards the direction where Beirut was flying from. Finally, when he was about to land, he caught him with incredible accuracy. "The commander has been captured." Zi Guangquan was so excited that he almost jumped up. The soldiers of the White Tiger Legion, who had already lost their fighting spirit, became even more confused when they saw the marshal being captured by the disciples of the Iron Bone School. It was a complete defeat. Jun Changxiao wanted to destroy them all, but it was easy. However, he passed an order to the Lingdao soldiers, and they shouted loudly, "Surrender your weapons and you will not be killed. Surrender your weapons and you will not be killed." The sound was like a loud bell, shocking the mind. The spirits of the White Tiger Legion soldiers were immediately disintegrated, and they threw their weapons on the ground and raised their hands high. The Lingdao soldiers also stopped attacking. The nearly 200,000 troops surrounded suffered 60,000 to 70,000 casualties in a short period of time. This killing speed was too fast. No wonder the well-trained and battle-hardened White Tiger Legion soldiers chose to surrender. Ding. Congratulations to the host for completing the hidden task, great victory, and obtaining 2000 contribution points. Ding. Contribution value of the sect. 3544/5000. Ding. Congratulations to the host for completing the hidden task, triggering the hidden reward, obtaining 1 Saint qualification transformation fluid, and 1 middle grade master ball, which have been transported to the space ring. Defeating 300,000 troops, and completing the hidden task. Delighted. The hidden rewards of the Saint qualification transformation fluid and the middle grade master ball are also very cool. Plop. In the training ground of Qingyang City, Yang Yuhe threw the tied up Beirut onto the stone platform. This general, one of the 10 most famous generals in Yangzhou, led an army of 300,000 to attack, but was not only defeated but also captured, which was even worse than Taoyuan. General Bei. Jun Changxiao came over and said proudly, "You lost." Beirut, kneeling on the ground, kept his head down, his eyes full of anger and pain. He had led the army in battle for 50 years, and although he had also lost battles, this time was unintentionally the most tragic defeat. Even if he was redeemed, his career would be completely over. Master Jun. Zi Guangquan said, "How do we deal with this person?" Puff. Jun Changxiao summoned a cold sword and directly cut off Beirut's head, saying lightly, "Send it to Zhejiang County, so that the ambitious county governor can understand what the fate of those who violate Qingyang County is." Zi Guangquan was stunned. He never dreamed that sect leader Jun would be so decisive in killing a famous general from Yangzhou in the southwest. Chapter 489. Follow me to conquer the world and sweep across the 6 directions and 8 wastelands. Jun Changxiao could have easily subdued Beirut, but he chose to kill him. The reason for doing so was to let the governor of Zhejiang County understand that Qingyang County could not be easily annexed. Not convinced? Continue to send troops. The Iron Bone Sect, will definitely fight to the end. With field artillery and the Jibankayankan bag, sect leader Jun is now full of confidence and is not afraid of secular wars at all. If it were not for the development of the sect, he would probably lead his army to counterattack Zhejiang County. This guy's really cruel. Changsan Fanghua said. Leng Xingyu said calmly, killing the White Tiger Corps commander is equivalent to completely making enemies with Zhejiang County. Changsan Fanghua said, Zhejiang County still has 3 large corps. If you really want to play hard, Kill them all and see how he defends Qingyang City. Xi Jinxian shook her head and said, Zuo County Magistrate is an ambitious man, not a reckless man. The defeat of the White Tiger Corps in Qingyang City must have sounded a warning to him. How could he easily send troops to kill again without careful consideration? This woman saw things very clearly. She also supported Jun Changxiao to kill the enemy commander, because this would have a deterrent effect and let Zhejiang County understand that, although Qingyang County is small, it is not a soft persimmon. The more Xi Jinxian saw it clearly with her heart, the more she had a strong liking for Jun Changxiao. From the current point of view, she secretly said, assisting him is the right bet. Changsun Fanghe and Leng Xingai were not as complicated as Xi Jinxian thought. They both agreed that the head of the Tigu sect was too arrogant and a fool, and he would fall sooner or later. Yes. With an army of 300,000 soldiers coming, they thought they would fall, but in the end, they were slapped in the face by reality. The 300,000 soldiers of the White Tiger Corps suffered heavy casualties, and the remaining more than 100,000 soldiers all surrendered and were imprisoned by Xi Guangquan. The attack of Zhejiang County ended in complete defeat. It is not difficult to imagine that when this matter spreads, it will definitely cause a huge sensation in Yangzhou in the southwest. Master Jun. Xi Jinxian smiled and said, the crisis in Qingyang City has been temporarily resolved. The affairs of the sect are busy, so I will take my disciples back first. Thank you for your help, Master Xi. I will remember this kindness in my heart. Jun Changxiao bowed his hands. He still had to deal with the aftermath, so he only sent Xi Jinxian out of the city. Leng Xingai, who was leaving with them, stopped and looked back at the tower. He looked into the eyes of Wei Lao, and there was still a hint of hatred in his beautiful eyes. Wei Lao sighed. Old Wei. Jun Chang smiled and said, Elder Leng still has her charm. She must have been a great beauty when she was young. Why don't you two reconcile? It would be a good thing if his whole master could have a further relationship with the elder of my Otho Palace. Old Wendy shook his head and said, I'm just an old man who is about to die. How can I drag her down again? You are still so pessimistic. Jun Chang smiled speechlessly. Old Wendy changed the subject and smiled. The palace master of my Otho Palace seems to have a good impression of the head of the sect. If you take the initiative, there will definitely be a chance between you two. Jun Chang smiled and said, didn't you say that I must develop the sect and must not be obsessed with love between men and women? Old Wendy said, if it were another girl, I would naturally not be obsessed with her, but that girl is the leader of a fourth-rate sect. If I marry her home, she will definitely become a good wife for the head of the sect. That makes sense. Jun Chang smiled and held his chin. Although this woman has an eye disease, she must have extraordinary means to sit in a high position. If I marry her and let her manage the sect, can't I go out into the world with my sword? System. Marrying a beautiful girl, he actually wants to be a hands-off shopkeeper. If this guy can get out of being single, it must be God's fault. Wei Lao Dao, I'm just talking casually. The difficulty of the sect leader marrying a fourth-rate sect leader home may be more difficult than breaking through the martial emperor. Jun Changxiao agreed. He is very handsome and has a lot of personal charm. But how could she abandon such a big sect and marry into the Iron Bone Sect? The system can't stand it anymore. Forcing an explanation and praising himself in passing, this guy must be thicker than the wall of Qingyang City. On the battlefield outside the city, the corpses were cleaned up, and although there was still a faint trace of blood, it was at least not that scary. Thank you, City Lord. Jun Chang smiled and said, I will select a group of captured soldiers and bring them back to Tigu sect. The rest will be left to you to deal with. Xi Guangquan was dumbfounded. How should he deal with so many captives? How to deal with them is his business. After taking inventory, Sect Master Jun took the disciples of Tigu sect back to the sect. The captives he took away were all soldiers of the Tiger Power Army. The Tigu sect still lacked more than 2,000 disciples. Since it could not recruit outstanding young men and could not poach from other counties, it could only start with these soldiers with a solid foundation. The soldiers of the Tiger Power Army were chosen because they were trained by Tao Yuan. As long as that guy recognized the sect, he could naturally make them recognize it. Sect Master Jun's little abacus was working. However, after returning to the sect, Tao Yuan still locked himself in the room. It can be seen that after being captured, he lost his memory and joined the Tegu sect, which was a knot in his heart that he could not untie. Creaky. The door opened. Jun Changxiao walked in, sat on the chair, crossed his legs and said, Zhejiang County sent 300,000 troops to attack Qingyang City. Tao Yuan, who was facing the wall, had no expression on his face. The result? Jun Changxiao said, the commander-in-chief Beirut who was beheaded by me, and his head has been sent to Zhejiang County. The White Tiger Corps no longer exists. Tao Yuan, who was facing away, trembled slightly. After a while, he sighed deeply, but his eyes were not too shocked. For 3 months, he has been living in the Tegu sect. He not only knows that the wolf cavalry is brave and good at fighting, but also witnessed the master throwing beans to make soldiers. Such a strong fighting power, if used on the battlefield, will definitely be invincible. What's more, Master Zhu is extremely proficient in military tactics. Although Beirut's White Tiger Corps has 300,000, it will definitely not be able to gain an advantage in attacking the city. Jun Changxiao said, I'm not showing off to you, but I want to tell you that, if my Tegu sect can defeat a legion like Zhejiang County, what kind of opponent can't be defeated? Tao Yuan was silent. Jun Changxiao said again, the door is always open, you can leave now, I won't force you. Tao Yuan's eyes were complicated. Yes, the door of Tegu sect is always open, he can leave without hesitation, but he chose to lock himself in the room, which means he is struggling in his heart. These days, Tao Yuan admires Zhu Ringwei very much, and he is eager to lead the wolf cavalry. He doesn't want to leave, he wants to stay. But the dignity of being a soldier is restraining him again, making it difficult for him to make a decision. Jun Changxiao stood up, looked out the window, and said heroically, stay, follow me to conquer the world, sweep across the 6 directions and 8 wastelands, and establish unparalleled merits. Tao Yuan was stunned, and his eyes gradually showed a strong fighting spirit. I have brought the soldiers you trained. Jun Chang smiled and said, they can continue to follow you to fight. In the future, there will be a place for you, Tao Yuan, to be a famous general in this Xinjiang continent. No, he said firmly, it should be the one that resounds through the sky, the god of war. The Master Jun's magic skill is definitely not exaggerated. Even Zhu Ringwei, who was standing outside, was completely ignited again when he heard the words god of war. People have no dreams. What is the difference between them and the salted fish authors who don't update their works? Therefore, Tao Yuan, who was already in a dilemma, stood up suddenly, then turned around and saluted Jun Changxiao and said in a loud voice, Disciple Tao Yuan, I'm willing to follow the master to conquer the world and create unprecedented merits. Ding. Congratulations to the host for completing the hidden task, bewitching people, and obtaining 1000 contribution points. Ding. Sect contribution value 4544/5000. Chapter 490 A Slap Awakens Kinhoran. Zhejiang County's main city, Zhejiang City, has a magnificent, palace-like building complex. This is where the county magistrate lives, and is privately called the Royal Palace by the people. Judging from the architecture alone, it shows that the county magistrate of Zhejiang County is a very ambitious person. Otherwise he would never build a palace similar to the one where the emperor lives. So, what does this county magistrate look like? Following the camera into the magnificent hall, you can see a middle-aged man in his 30s or 40s with a majestic appearance sitting in the first seat. Zhuo Changxiao, the county magistrate of Zhejiang County. His full beard gives people a very wild feeling. His tiger eyes are shining, and his body exudes the aura of a long-time superior. The image is very consistent, an ambitious hero. However, in the first seat, the generals and councillors all bowed their heads, and they were all trembling in their hearts. The atmosphere in the hall was slightly serious. Just now, Beirut, whose head was sent over in a brocade box. Pa. Zhuo Changxiao slapped the table with his palm and shouted angrily, 300,000 troops. Not only did they fail to capture Qingyang City, but they were also completely destroyed. Beirut, who is to blame for his death? The county magistrate was really angry. After all, the White Tiger Corps was one of the 4 legions that he had carefully built. Now that it was gone, he must be heartbroken. County magistrate. A burly general bowed and said, "I'm willing to lead the Black Tortoise Corps to attack Qingyang County and bring back the head of the Iron Bone Sect leader. My Azure Dragon Corps invites you to fight. My Suzaku Corps invites you to fight." The White Tiger Corps was destroyed. Not only was the county magistrate angry, but the commanders of the 3 legions were also very angry. The combined strength of these 3 legions is at least 1 million. If they really attack Qingyang City, sect leader Jun will definitely be under great pressure again. Although Zuo Cheokwon was so angry that his beard was trembling, he calmed down and said, "Recently, my Zhejiang County has been on frequent expeditions, which has made several large counties very dissatisfied. We must not waste troops for a small county again." The Tigu faction stationed in Qingyang City wiped out the White Tiger Corps and sent Beiruhu's head, which was obviously a warning to himself. If it was just the Tigu faction, Zuo Cheokwon would definitely take it down at all costs. But now there is more than one enemy, and many large counties are eyeing Zhejiang County covetously, so he has to think carefully. What's more, the White Tiger Corps was completely wiped out, and the Tigu faction must have some strength, and there must be casualties if the army is sent there. It is not a wise move to take down a 9th class county that is just expanding the territory and has no resource value. Zuo Cheokwon is not a stupid and brainless villain. He will definitely be honest for a while after sending the trash to give the protagonist experience. At least he must deal with the large counties that are eyeing him covetously outside before considering attacking Qingyang County. This is also what Master Jun hopes, because he is short of time now. Even if he can give his sect a little breathing space to develop, he will have the confidence to fight the whole world. Have you heard that Zhejiang County sent the White Tiger Corps with a total of 300,000 troops to attack Qingyang County, but they all failed outside Qingyang City? I have heard about such a big thing a long time ago, and as far as I know, the commander-in-chief Beiruhu was beheaded, and his head was sent to Zhejiang County. My god, the White Tiger Corps is one of the most elite divisions in southwest Yangzhou, and General Bei is also one of the top 10 generals. He actually died in the city of Qingyang. As expected, the martial artists in southwest Yangzhou have received the latest battle reports one after another, and they are shocked and talking about it. Especially when they know that it is the Iron Bone Sect that is responsible for guarding Qingyang City. Their eyes are even more incredible. It has been a while since the life and death arena was set up at the foot of the mountain, and the heat has begun to gradually decline. Just because the Iron Bone Sect participated in the secular war and destroyed the White Tiger Corps, it once again topped the hot search list. What a family fight. What about someone fighting someone for 3 days and 3 nights? Even recently, the concubine of the head of a famous family had an affair with the housekeeper, but they were all suppressed by the Tigu sect. The happiest people were the 7 city masters in Qingyang County. They received the information at the first time and almost couldn't help jumping up with excitement. Qingyang City is the main city in the county. The Tigu sect defended it, which undoubtedly brought light to them who were lost in the darkness. The 6th class Zhejiang County. It is not invincible. The news of victory spread in Qingyang County. The people in the city, town, and village all ran around to tell each other and celebrated with gongs and drums. Many people even knelt and kowtowed in the direction of Tigu Mountain. If Qingyang County fell, they would become slaves. It was the Tigu sect and the head of the Jun sect who turned the tide. Naturally, they were deeply worshipped by the people. If Jun Changxiao turned the sect into a temple and put up incense boxes, it would definitely attract many pilgrims. Heokiman, main hall. After Qin Huoran received the battle report, he held the letter paper, sat in the first seat like a wooden chicken, and it took him a long time to come back to his senses. Tigu sect can resist 300,000 troops? How is this possible? If it wasn't written clearly in black and white, alliance leader Qin would really think he was dreaming. He had received the news that Zhejiang County attacked Heian County and Huaiyan County a long time ago. At that time, he had discussed with the bigwigs of the alliance and finally concluded that Qingyang County might also be targeted. For this reason, Heokiman and the alliance sects all closed the mountain gates and did not care about worldly affairs. When Qingyang County was in danger, they chose to keep themselves out of trouble one by one. This practice is really despicable. Therefore, Jun Changxiao led the disciples of Tigu Sect to defend Qingyang City and severely defeated the army of Zhejiang County, which was undoubtedly equivalent to slapping them hard in the face. Loud and crisp. This slap also woke up Qin Horan, who was pretending to sleep. He finally realized and admitted that the Tigu Sect was already in existence, that he and the alliance could not contend with. Challenge the Shengquan Sect. Fight the god-killing temple in the ring. Now he is fighting against the elite division of the 6th class county. What can Qin Horan, Heoki Sect, and the 100 Sects Alliance do with the above 3 points? Not at all. He dared not even think about it. In the past, the Tigu Sect was just an ant at the foot of the mountain in the eyes of Qin Horan and the big guys of the alliance. Now it has turned into a behemoth, so they can only look up. Looking up is still behind. When Tao Yuan recognized Jun Changxiao and the Tigu Sect, his 2,472 soldiers of the Hui army also joined the sect. The number of people is exactly 5,000, triggering the sect mission. When the disciples complete the mission, and when the achievement value reaches the requirement, the sect level will be upgraded, and the members will be expanded. The Tigu Sect will also be one step closer to becoming a 5th-rate sect. Why? Because to be promoted from a sect to a clan, not only 10,000 members are needed, but also 1 martial king, 10 martial masters, and 1,000 martial masters are required. The realm level of the Tigu Sect is fully met, but it lacks disciples, so the expansion of members is the key to becoming a clan. Of course, disciples are not a problem, because the soldiers trained by Tao Yuan all live in the Tigu Sect, and not all of them joined the sect, because of the member restrictions. As long as Jun Changxiao doesn't care about qualifications and wants to improve, it will be easy for the Tigu Sect to be promoted from a sect to a clan. Chapter 491 Construction Improvement, Level 6. Tao Yuan finally figured it out, and he really regarded himself as a member of the Tigos Sect. This shows that Sect Master Jun's brainwashing ability is still very strong. As for what he said about following me to conquer the world and sweep across the 6 directions and 8 wastelands, it is actually a bit of bragging. Fighting is impossible. After all, the main task now is to develop the sect. After Tao Yuan agreed, the captured Hui army soldiers naturally joined willingly, and the disciples of the Tigu Sect were instantly filled. Sect tasks appeared in the mission pavilion, and the disciples began to do them actively. During this period, Jun Changxiao assigned the new soldiers to the Wolf Riders Hall, and appointed Tao Yuan as the deputy hall master, responsible for assisting Zhu Ringui. One is a 5-star general, and the other is a rookie in the military. What achievements will the Wolf Riders Hall have in the future under the management of the two? Let's wait and see. Master, Zhu Ringui said, there are not enough mounts. Don't worry, don't worry. Jun Changxiao said calmly, when the wolf cubs in the mountains grow up, they will be equipped to the Wolf Riders Hall. Being in a place with abundant spiritual energy and a supply of feed pills, the Hurricane Wolf pack living in the mountains is also growing very fast. Soon, the new members of the Wolf Riders Hall will definitely ride one each. Although Jun Changxiao has no intention of competing for world domination, there are ambitious heroes in the Xinjiang continent, so it is definitely necessary to prepare for development. At least when the war comes, we have the ability to deal with it. Although the master of the Iron Bone School is a bit skinny, he is by no means without any advantages except being handsome. More than 2,000 new disciples have been accepted, and the contribution value has also overflowed. Jun Changxiao did not go to the intermediate mall, but bought a lot of shaping rooms and medium-grade qualification transformation fluids to use in the development of the sect and disciples. Because Zhejiang County stopped attacking, Qingyang County was able to calm down as usual. Sect Master Jun also had a rare moment of peace, and began to think about who to give the holy qualification transformation liquid obtained from the hidden mission. Qian Qian's qualifications are very strong. It's useless to give it to her, so let's give it to Qingyang first. Everyone can see the efforts Li Qingyang has made for the sect, and giving the qualification transformation liquid to him is absolutely the most appropriate. In the allocation of martial arts resources, Jun Changxiao is not partial. Whoever is suitable will be given to whom. If there is really no choice, then it can only be given on a first come, first served basis. So, in the future, as long as there is, Xiao Zuji, Yi Xingchen and others will definitely be indispensable. When buying the AWM sniper rifle, Sect Master Jun also bought 5 bottles of top quality qualification transformation liquid. Now there are 7 bottles in stock, so they were distributed to Li Yuhe, Ling Yuangsu, Song Zuantao and Zhang Wenyi. Hu. In the wing room, when Li Qingyang took the transformation liquid and his qualifications were upgraded from top quality to holy, he clenched his fists tightly, and his eyes were shining with a hot luster. The transformation of qualifications promoted his cultivation, and allowed him to smoothly move from the 7th rank to the 8th rank martial arts master. At the level of Wu Zhang, the one with the highest cultivation level is Yi Xingchen, who has reached the 9th grade Wu Zhang. Xiao Zuji, Su Xiaomo and others are at the 7th grade, and Long Xiang and other disciples who entered the inner sect later are at the 4th or 5th grade on average. After Yang Yuhe, Ling Yuangsu and others took the top grade qualification transformation liquid, their spiritual roots were upgraded to the top grade. Because they had taken it before, although they were very excited, they were not too surprised. Song Zuantao, on the other hand, was shocked. "Brother Li," he said in disbelief, "what kind of elixir is this? After taking it, it can actually improve the level of spiritual roots." Li Qingyang said, "Don't be surprised, it's very common. Very common." Song Zuantao's mouth twitched slightly, and then he went to practice excitedly. So far, there are 2 holy grade, 14 top grade, and 5 upper grade disciples in the inner sect of Tegu sect. Note, the previous article said that there were 22 inner sect disciples of Tegu sect, but it was actually 21. I miscalculated. So many high-level spiritual root qualification disciples can never be found in second and third rate sects. As for whether there are first rate sects, it is still hard to say. I said the same thing. The Tegu sect has great potential, but it lacks time to grow. After the number of people is full, the sect mission is triggered, and the disciples accepted one after another. The sect achievement value is capped at 5,000 points. If all are completed, not only will there be overflow, but 5,000 contribution points will also be given, so Jun Changxiao can only open the intermediate mall again, and spend it in advance. I bought the Jibin Kyankan bag, but there was nothing good, so I spent 100 contribution points to refresh it. Fuck. Just now, I took a look at the new products, and saw the formula of the middle grade key gathering pill. Master Jun almost jumped up in excitement. Natural spirit stones can certainly quickly improve cultivation, but the number is limited after all. The biggest reliance of the Tegu sect is still the key gathering pill. The first grade key gathering pill is effective at low levels, but as the realm is improved, it is obviously powerless, so a higher level key gathering pill is needed. Click on the introduction. This middle grade key gathering pill has a speed of 30 times the speed of absorbing spiritual energy. The first grade key gathering pill provides 10 times the spiritual power intake speed, but with higher level medicinal materials, it can break through to 15 times or even 20 times. If the middle grade key gathering pill is combined with high quality medicinal materials, it will definitely be more than 30 times. Bye. Jun Changxiao took the middle grade key gathering pill formula without hesitation. Automatically matched to the alchemy pavilion, clicked on the elixir, and presented a variety of medicinal materials required for refining, but they were not too precious, and should be able to be bought or grown. Continue to browse. Sect leader Jun saw another recipe called detoxification pill. The introduction said that after taking it, it can dissolve hundreds of poisons. In the future, disciples will go out to experience the wild. It is indispensable to equip detoxification pills. He spent another 1000 contribution points to buy the recipe. During this period, sect leader Jun collected a lot of medicinal materials. When he opened the alchemy pavilion, he could just refine a few hundred pills, so he decisively refined detoxification pills with one click. Continue to browse them all, and found 2 more martial arts. Although the level is only high grade, it is also stronger than the explosion fist. Sect leader Jun decisively bought it. As long as the martial arts products are refreshed, no matter how high or low the level is, he will buy them to enrich the martial arts library of the sect. After copying 5,000 copies of each martial art, there are 4,996 contribution points, and 796 points are left for sect leader Jun to use. He was not panicked at all, because the disciples would gradually fill up their contribution points as they completed the sect missions. Sure enough, in the next 5 or 6 days, the disciples who accepted the missions completed them one after another, and the contribution points and achievement points on the system panel rose steadily. In order to make up an integer, Sect Master Jun tried every means to spend all 796 contribution points. Until the 10th day, all the tasks were completed. The contribution points were 5000/5000, and the achievement points were 7200/5000. It's time to upgrade. Jun Changxiao rubbed his hands, and then clicked on the sect construction. Ding. Sect construction has been upgraded to level 6. Ding. The upper limit of sect members, contribution points, and achievement points has been increased. Ding. The sect's Lingayan Pavilion is open. After the prompt sounded, the system data panel suddenly changed. Sect name, Strongest Sect. Sect master, Jun Changxiao. Sect level, 6th stream. Sect construction, level 6. Sect functions, Alchemy Pavilion, Casting Pavilion, Talisman Pavilion, Spirit Beast Pavilion, Lingayan Pavilion. Sect skills, Yi Jinjing, Divine Grade Elementary, Zhan Yunbu, Upper Grade Elementary, Sound Transmission, Middle Grade Advanced. Sect members 5,000/10,000. Sect contribution value 5,000/10,000. Sect achievement value 2,200/10,000. Sect's main task, within 100 years, finally broke 10,000. At the beginning, the upper limit of each value in the system was 100, and now it has reached 10,000 points, making Jun Changxiao almost burst into tears. For the sect to become stronger, I have a fever of 60 degrees and I'm still insisting on developing the sect. Do you know how hard I work? The system poured cold water on me and said, there are still 90,000 disciples away from the 100,000 disciples in the main task. The host must have a higher fever and work harder. Chapter 492 Lingayan Pavilion. After the sect construction was upgraded, what excited Jun the most was the new function Lingayan Pavilion. From the word Ling, he guessed that it might be related to spiritual energy, and from the word Yun, he guessed that it might have a nurturing function. Could it help me nurture spiritual power? Jun Changxiao's heart was pounding, and he hurriedly clicked on Lingayan Pavilion. In the small panel that popped up, there was a space similar to 3D projection as always, with things like alchemy furnaces placed on it, and the 3 words Lingayan Furnace were engraved on it. There were many items arranged below the panel, all of which were existing items. For example, the first grade cold front sword, the iron shield, the overlord spear, the soft silk armor, the middle grade cold sword, etc. What's going on? With doubts, Jun clicked on the first grade cold front sword. Item, first grade cold front sword. Lingayan. 0/1 time. Please choose golden spirit, wood spirit, water spirit, fire spirit, earth spirit. Note, as the sect construction level increases, more Lingayan will be unlocked. Jun Changxiao was confused and asked, what does this mean? The system explained, the host just guessed half right. Lingayan Pavilion does have the function of nurturing, but it does not nurture spiritual power, but nurtures weapon spirits. Nude weapon spirits? Jun Changxiao's eyes widened immediately. The so-called weapon spirit is the life formed in the weapon. The special effect of the Azure Dragon Crescent Blade was believed by many to have a weapon spirit, and was finally targeted by the demonic evil sect. The function of Lingayan Pavilion is to nurture system weapons and treasures in depth, so as to condense weapon spirits with different attributes. For example, the first grade cold blade sword. If you choose to nurture the fire spirit, it will become a weapon with a fire spirit after it is formed. After hearing the system explain the function of Lingayan Pavilion, Jun Changxiao's eyes lit up. Isn't this function of nurturing weapon spirits on weapons equivalent to embedding various attributes on equipment? Try it. Jun Changxiao clicked on the Fire Spirit button, and a window popped up. Available quantity 1. Do you want to continue nurturing? Damn. Can you nurture in batches? This means that all the disciples' cold swords will be taken back, and each one will have a weapon spirit. That will definitely be amazing. Continue. Jun Changxiao pressed the button. Hoo-hoo, the Lingayan furnace suddenly filled with a stream of rich fire spirit energy, and it seemed that the spirit essence had begun. According to the experience of the headmaster Jun, the more functions are opened later, the more time consuming it is, so he took back the system panel and began to consider another problem. Should he continue to recruit soldiers from the Tiger Power Army, or recruit talented martial artists? As long as Jun Changxiao is willing, the number of members of the sect can easily exceed 10,000, and then he can directly certify the sect. However, although these soldiers have good cultivation, their spiritual roots are too poor and their growth space is limited. If all of them are taken in, let alone 10,000, 100,000 will be enough, because there are still many white captives in Qingyang City. But if the number of people reaches the requirement, it will be difficult for the sect to become stronger in the future. In the past, the Tegu sect only had a few hundred disciples, and Jun Changxiao felt relaxed. After the number of disciples exceeded 2,000, the consumption of resources is too huge. 100,000 mediocre disciples would definitely require more resources to cultivate, which would also increase the burden and slow down the overall development of the sect. Since we can't recruit soldiers, we still have to focus on martial artists with good qualifications. At least we can save a lot of resources and speed up the growth of the sect. Jun Changxiao made a choice in his heart. The time limit of 100 years required him to take it seriously, instead of just finding a group of ordinary soldiers to rush in. How to recruit? They have to be placed in the outer counties. Sect Master Jun would naturally not poach people openly, but was thinking, instead of recruiting them, let them come on their own initiative. Now we have to think about what routine to use. The next day, the first grade cold front sword was successfully nurtured, and Jun Changxiao hurriedly sacrificed it. From the outside, the cold front sword did not change after nurturing, but the cold air was replaced by heat. TSK. Jun Changxiao said in surprise, a weapon made of cold iron actually has fire attributes after nurturing. This is really incredible. The spiritual thoughts were released and merged into the sword body. A small space was opened up inside, with a ghost-like little guy floating around. This was the newly nurtured fire spirit. Although it was small, it was full of firepower. The system said, the weapon spirit is in a state of being without a master. The host must sign a contract with it, before it can truly master it. Jun Changxiao communicated with it with his mind, and found that the little guy was a little resistant, but after a little scare, he surrendered obediently. Signing a contract with a newly formed weapon spirit is much easier than signing a contract with a fierce beast. It only took half an hour to get it done. After successfully taking down the fire spirit of the cold-edged sword, Jun Changxiao felt that he and the weapon were more compatible. The weapon spirit controls the weapon, and he and the weapon spirit are inseparable, and they will be more tacit in using it. Hoo-hoo, Jun Changxiao held the hilt of the sword and communicated with the internal weapon spirit. The entire sword body was suddenly covered with hot flames. It was so handsome that he had no friends. Awesome. Sect leader Jun was excited, and then came to the inner courtyard martial arts field, and began to swing and slash as much as he could. Swish, swish, swish. Flames and swords filled the air, forming a dazzling web of flames. Oh my god. Suzaomo came from the side room, and looked at the crisscrossing flames and swords in the martial arts arena. Her eyes widened. Li Fei, Shanqi and others were also startled, and they all looked at the master practicing swordsmanship in admiration. After playing for a while, Jun Changxiao put away his sword, and the flames gradually dissipated. He said, is it handsome? Handsome. Everyone said in unison. Suzaomo was even more admiring and said, it would be great if I could be a fire-type martial artist like the master. He believed that Jun Changxiao's ability to display the flame sword energy was related to his own fire cultivation. Isn't this simple? Jun Changxiao said casually, bring your cold sword here, and I will make you a fire-type martial artist. Bring the sword here, and become a fire cultivator? Suzaomo's eyes were full of confusion, but she still handed over the cold sword. Are you sure you want the fire type? Jun Changxiao said. Sure. As a man, he naturally likes the fire attribute that represents explosion and wildness. Jun Changxiao looked at Li Fei, Shanqi and others, and said, bring your swords here, and I will make you all fire-type martial artists. Ah. The disciples were dumbfounded. However, out of absolute trust in the master, they handed over their weapons one after another. Master. Yang Yuhua scratched his head and said, I prefer the earth element. Jun Changxiao said, as long as it is within the 5 element, you can choose whatever you want. Song Zuancao hurriedly said, Master, I like the gold element. Long Xiang handed over the overlord spear and said, Master, I also like the gold element. Master, I like the wood element. Master, I like the water element. Although the disciples didn't know what was going on, as long as they handed their weapons to the master, they would tell him what attribute they liked. Xingchen. Jun Changxiao said, what about yours? Yi Xingchen muttered in his heart, this emperor prefers to use fists. However, since the master took the initiative to ask, he said, whatever. After writing down one by one, Jun Changxiao opened the Lingayan Pavilion and began to refine in batches according to different attributes. Although the Lingayan Pavilion's incubation function is slow, it takes the same time to incubate one or a bunch of weapons, so the next morning, the cold front swords containing different weapon spirits came out. There is a weapon spirit inside the sword. You can sign a contract with it, and then you can use the attributes you want. After assigning them, Jun Changxiao reminded them. Weapon spirit? The disciples widened their eyes. Lord GD, who preferred to use his fists, was also surprised when he took the Hanfeng sword and felt that there was indeed a weapon spirit inside. He opened his mouth in shock. This is really a weapon spirit. Wait. Yi Xingchen collapsed and said, Master, why is it a water type weapon spirit? Didn't you say it doesn't matter? Jun Changxiao said. At that moment, our Lord GD almost vomited blood. It's okay to give a fire or gold type weapon spirit, but giving a water type weapon spirit, do you think you are a woman? P.S. The arrogant G-millimeters shouted, please vote. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 493 Lukai Qian. Take care. After obtaining the weapons with spiritual essence, the disciples of Tegu sect quickly signed a contract with the internal weapon spirit. The advantage is that it has become an exclusive weapon. Even if others obtain it, they cannot play the effect because they cannot get the support of the weapon spirit. As system weapons, the cold sword and the overlord spear are very strong in themselves. Now with the weapon spirit, they will only be more powerful. To be precise, weapons blessed by weapon spirits can be classified as treasures. Jun Changxiao condensed weapon spirits for many disciples, which is equivalent to giving them a treasure each. This is very powerful. It also shocked Yi Xingchen. He had naturally seen weapons with weapon spirits in his previous life, but it was also extremely rare. The head of the sect actually gave them to disciples at will. The upper realm. It must be from the upper realm. Hoo-hoo. Hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo. In the huge martial arts field of the outer courtyard, Suzaomo and others communicated with the weapon spirits one after another. In an instant, the fire system was red, the water system was blue, the wood system was light green, the earth system was light brown, and the gold system was bright yellow. The brilliant 5-element attributes spread out, interweaving a spectacular picture. From another angle, it looks like all the equipment is inlaid with stones of various attributes. A real RMB player, Hiwudi, who had just finished training in the shaping room, saw Suzaomo and others holding various gorgeous weapons, and his eyes widened immediately, saying, all these weapons have weapon spirits? As expected, he is an expert, and he can see it at a glance. In his world, weapon spirits are standard, and if you don't have them, you are not considered a master, and you are embarrassed to say hello to others when you go out. However, in the mortal plane martial artists have weapon spirits, and there are so many of them, which is shocking. It must be left by the 7 mysterious saints in the mortal world. Yi Xingchen believes that these weapons are from the upper realm. Hiwudi, who is truly a person from the upper realm, thinks that they are left by the great power. This misunderstanding is really wonderful. Swish, swish. In the martial arts arena, the 5 element are frequently released, which can be described as gorgeous. Suzaomo, Li Fei and others are fire weapon spirits, and the diffuse flames exude an explosive power. Long Xiang and Song Zuansai are gold type weapon spirits, and their spearheads and sword bodies are indestructible and sharp. Yang Yuhua's spirit is not a weapon, but a hard iron shield. Because of the earth type weapon spirit, it immediately forms a thick force after being activated, and the defensive strength is also improved. As for the wood and water element, they are more auxiliary, so they are more suitable for girls. No wonder. Yi Xingchen, who got the water type weapon spirit weapon, had the urge to vomit blood. Looking at the disciples testing the weapons, the head of the Jun Sect standing in front of the hall smiled. The construction of the Lingayan Pavilion opened at level 6 is really powerful. The disciples equipped with such weapons will definitely improve their combat effectiveness. Moreover, as long as there are system weapons, you can spirit at any time, and there is no need for messy materials. It's a pity that the first grade weapons such as the Cold Edge Sword and the Overlord Spear can only be spirited once. This is what the head of the Jun Sect is not satisfied with. Pulling open the Lingayan Pavilion and clicking on the Handmang Sword, the data presented is similar to that of the Cold Edge Sword, but the number of spirits is 2 times, which means that 2 kinds of weapon spirits can be spirited. I'm a fire type martial artist and the king of swordsmanship, so it is more appropriate to choose fire spirit and gold spirit. Jun Changxiao murmured. Just at this moment, Lu Qian walked in from the inner courtyard, and he said, Qian, bring your cold sword here, I will help you modify it. It's a pity that there is no ice type weapon spirit, otherwise it would definitely be the first choice. Lu Qian came, but did not take out the cold sword, but said, Master, I want to go out for training. She had mentioned this matter before, but it was temporarily shelved because of the invasion of Zhejiang County. Now that the matter has been temporarily resolved, it is time to go to Luzhou in the northeast to practice. Okay. Jun Changxiao said, I will allow you to go out for training. He would not stop his disciples from going out. But, Jun Changxiao added, bring the cold sword first. There is no problem with going out for training, but you must first condense the weapon into a weapon spirit. At least it can improve your combat effectiveness and be safer outside. Lu Qian handed over the cold sword. Jun Changxiao did not ask her what weapon spirit she needed, but chose the fire spirit and the water spirit. Since there was no ice spirit, the water spirit was a good choice as a second choice. As for the fire spirit, I hope that it could melt her always cold heart. The next day, Jun Changxiao handed the weapon with spiritual essence to Lu Qian and said, when are we going to leave? Today. Lu Qian said. So soon. Jun Changxiao thought for a moment and said, okay. Tigu Sect, outside the mountain gate. Li Qingyang, Xiao Zuji and other disciples personally saw off the eldest sister. Although Li Qian was cold and taciturn, she was the eldest disciple of the Tiguzheng sect after all, and naturally she was respected by her fellow disciples. Elder sister, Liu Wan, she cried, take care on your journey. She used to be very afraid of Lu Qian. After all, when she first came, she had a sword on her neck. However, later on, when she became a disciple of the Tigu sect, she would receive guidance from the elder sister if she didn't understand anything in martial arts. Although she was cold and didn't talk much, she could often point out the flaws in one sentence, which benefited her a lot. With the gradual contact, Liu Wan, she became more aware that the elder sister was just cold-tempered, but she was actually a very good person. Ling Yuanxu and the female disciples of the Tigu sect were also sad when they saw the elder sister go down the mountain. Second brother, Suzaomo said, where is the head of the sect? Li Qingyang shook his head and said, I don't know either. Jun Changxiao didn't come to see off the eldest disciple. He sat alone on the roof of the hall, and the past events rose in his sea of consciousness. I want to join the Tiguzheng sect. This was the first sentence Lu Qian said when she first appeared. At that time, the great headmaster Jun had just traveled through time and had to rely on Aunt Wan for a leaf even for food. He was poor and miserable. Are you the headmaster? I'm quitting the sect. Faced with Lu Qian's doubts, the headmaster Jun did everything he could to keep her. Later, when he went to Qingyang City to participate in the recruitment of 100 sects, the only disciple of this sect was not less venomous, and it also gave many readers the opportunity to use the topic to spray. Damn it. Jun Changxiao shook his head, put aside all memories, and said, "It's not like I'm not going to come back. Why be so sad?" He stood up, looked at the graceful figure that had disappeared on the stairs, and transmitted his voice. "Luke Iron Qian, remember what I said. You will always be the eldest disciple of the Strongest Sect." Luke Iron Qian, who had come down the mountain, heard it, but did not respond. If you encounter trouble outside, don't be reckless. You must find a way to come to the sect for help. I and your junior brothers and sisters are your strong backing. Jun Changxiao transmitted his voice again. Luke Iron Qian stopped at the foot of the mountain and looked back at the mountain gate. A group of fellow apprentices were still waving their hands and smilingly seeing her off. She had been expelled from the sect, and no one comforted her or cared about her. Now, she was just going out for training, which did not mean that she would not return. However, her fellow apprentices stood in front of the mountain gate to see her off for a long time. At that moment, Luke Iron Qian's mood was in turmoil. Is it so difficult to be calm? She looked bitter and left without looking back. On this day, the eldest disciple of the Strongest Sect went down the mountain and began her own training. As for when she would return, it was still unknown. Chapter 494. Please accept our greetings. After Luke Iron Qian left, the cold feeling that permeated the Strongest Sect completely dissipated. However, the disciples felt as if something was missing, and they all felt a little uncomfortable during the routine morning exercises. Sect Master Jun was not used to it either. After the morning exercises, he sat in the main hall and occasionally looked up at the door. There, she often appeared out of the blue, then leaned against the door and said some cold words. People have feelings. Even if this kind of feeling has nothing to do with love between men and women. After being in contact with Luke Iron Qian for a long time, although she didn't have much presence on weekdays, now that she has left, she will definitely feel that something is missing. Oh. Jun Changxiao sighed. If he had known this, he would not have approved her to go out for training. She just left not long ago. Li Luoqiu walked in from outside and said with a smile, "Master, you miss her already?" This was a hint, but Master Jun, who was destined to be alone, certainly didn't hear the hidden meaning, but said rather sadly, "After all, she is the eldest disciple, how can I not miss her?" Li Luoqiu said, "Don't think about it, I have good news for you." "What good news?" Jun Changxiao said. Li Luoqiu said with a smile, "Zhejiang County and Xi'an County have started a war, and both sides have sent 500,000 troops." Jun Changxiao's eyes lit up and said, "It is indeed good news. Zhejiang County is fighting with a large county of the same 6th rank, so it certainly has no intention of targeting Qingyang County, so he can develop the sect in peace." Senior brother. In the martial arts arena, Suzuomo whispered, "Everyone seems to be out of spirits without the eldest sister. It takes time to adapt." Li Qingyang said. Swish. He stood up and clapped his hands, saying, "Don't just stand there, do your tasks, practice." The eldest sister was not there, and as the second disciple, he had to shoulder the burden. Yes. The disciples adjusted their moods and began to focus on practice. Sect Master Jun also gradually got out of the negative emotions brought about by the departure of the eldest disciple and began to arrange the follow-up plan for the development of the sect. First, expand the sect. After accommodating 5,000 disciples, the inner and outer courtyard seemed to be more crowded, and expansion was necessary. After receiving the order, Li Qingyang took out a lot of architectural sketches and even a lot of small models. Looking at the exquisite architectural models, Sect Master Jun was surprised and said, "Did you make them?" "Yeah." Li Qingyang said. "TSK. Jun Changxiao praised, "These architectural models you made can completely compete with Yang Shilei." "Yang Shilei?" Li Qingyang said blankly. Jun Changxiao did not explain too much, handed over the space ring, and said, "Here are 10 million teals. If it's not enough, come and get more." Li Qingyang's mouth twitched slightly. 10 million teals to expand the Strongest Sect. This is absolutely very extravagant. No way. Sect Master Jun is now short of cultivation and a large number of high quality disciples, but the only thing he doesn't lack is money. The next day, Under the auspices of Li Qingyang, the expansion of the inner courtyard of the Tigu sect was in full swing. Other disciples continued to practice as usual. After the morning exercises, Sect Master Jun went to Huayang City. He bought the formula of the medium-grade gelling pill. He lacked the medicinal materials for refining, and the seeds for planting. Secret Master Jun. In the medicinal materials store, Ai Shangni hurried to see him, and said with great gratitude, defending Qingyang City is equivalent to defending Qingyang County. This is a great favor. It's just a trivial matter, not worth mentioning. Jun Chang smiled. Ai Shangni's mouth twitched slightly. He fought against the 300,000 troops of Zhenyang County, and killed Beiruhu. If this is considered a trivial matter, then what is a big deal? Master Ai. Jun Changxiao got back to the point and said, I came here this time, to buy some medicinal herbs and seeds. As he spoke, he handed over a list of materials. Ai Shangni looked through it carefully and said, Master Jun, these medicinal herbs, our store doesn't have much in stock, but we do have a lot of seeds. I want them all. Jun Changxiao said very straightforwardly. With Elder Wei in the pharmacy here, the value of seeds must be higher than ordinary medicinal herbs. Ai Shangni was very efficient. In just half an hour, a large number of medicinal herbs and seeds for refining medium-grade gelling pills were delivered. How much? Master Jun has resolved the disaster for Qingyang County. I'm very grateful, and will give them all for free. This, Jun Changxiao said reluctantly. Okay then. Before leaving, he gave Ai Shangni dozens of healing pills and more than 10 body-shaping pills. On the main street, Sect leader Jun walked straight ahead, and the people in the city all looked at him with gratitude and admiration. Lia. A woman held a 3-year-old boy and said, this is the sect leader of the Strongest Sect, the great benefactor of our Qingyang County. Mom. The child said with a firm look, when I grow up, I must join the Strongest Sect. Sect leader Jun. An elderly man knelt down and said, please accept my respects. He was not a local resident of Qingyang County. He moved here with his relatives 100 years ago because his hometown suffered the baptism of war. As a person who has experienced it, the old man knows the cruelty of war better than anyone else, and also knows the importance of a peaceful life better than anyone else. So he knelt down, just to thank sect leader Jun. When writing this paragraph, I thought of my great-grandmother, who is still alive, and is nearly 100 years old. When she was young, when China was invaded by foreign enemies, she took her still young grandfather, my grandfather, to avoid the bombardment of Japanese artillery shells. We live in a peaceful era, so how can we understand how those older generations who were born in the war era lived in fear and trepidation? Therefore, the national humiliation cannot be forgotten. Countless ancestors sacrificed their lives and shed their blood to make the country peaceful and the people safe today. People in later generations should always remember it in their hearts. Old man, please get up quickly. Jun Changxiao waved his sleeves, and the soft spiritual energy helped the kneeling old man up. However, as soon as he helped the man up, the people standing on the street knelt on the ground. Master Jun. Everyone kowtowed and said, please accept our greetings. This, Jun Changxiao was embarrassed, and hurriedly left Huayang City. However, when he just walked to a remote area, 2 black shadows flew out from the darkness, and strong spiritual energy burst out from their bodies. Judging from the breath, it was definitely the king of martial arts. Boom. Boom. Jun Changxiao suddenly turned around, and blasted the sneak attacker out directly. Bang. 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 The 2 black shadows landed, staggered back, and their eyes were filled with disbelief. I was hiding so well, and suddenly attacked, but he actually fought back so quickly. His reaction was too fast. Jun Changxiao closed his palms and sneered. You two have been following me for a long time, right? Yes. He caught up with me in Huayang City. Master Jun, a rough-looking man in black, about 30 years old, bowed and said, you are really strong. My 2 brothers admire you very much. Jun Changxiao said lightly, are you from Zhenyang County? No. From the demonic sect? No. From the god-killing temple? No. Jun Changxiao was puzzled. He only has a few enemies, and none of them are from them. Who sent them? Master Jun. The man in black bowed and said, my 2 brothers have no sect or school. We have been wandering around the world for many years. We want to worship under the Iron Bone Sect. Huh. Jun Changxiao was stunned. Two martial kings took the initiative to join the Iron Bone Sect. This way of opening is a bit wrong. Chapter 495 The Ning Brothers. The two martial kings who attacked from the dark were of similar age, both in their early 30s, and had similar looks, so they should be brothers. They wanted to join the Tegu sect, which made Jun Changxiao stunned. Just going out, two martial kings wanted to join, which was too mysterious. Or has my brother reached the point where all the masters are scrambling to become his younger brother? Under normal circumstances, Sect Master Jun must have suspected that the two were undercover agents. But if they joined the Tegu sect, they would be restricted. If they dared to come to obtain information, or if they had second thoughts, they would directly erase their memories, so they were not worried at all. Sect Master Jun said, "You two are martial kings, so you should be quite famous in the martial arts world, right?" The older man in black bowed and said, "My name is Ning Duxing, and my brother is Ning Duzu. Because we broke through to the martial king by chance, we are not famous in the martial arts world." Ning Duxing. Ning Duzu. Everyone is drunk, but I'm the only one awake. Everyone is awake, but I'm the only one drunk. This name is really unique. Ning Duxing said, "We heard that Master Jun dared to compete with Zhenyang County and was a man of great courage, so we came to seek refuge. Please take us in." I see. Jun Changxiao understood. "But, since you guys came to seek refuge, you wouldn't attack in the dark, right?" In fact, the two brothers were just testing each other. Although their spiritual energy burst was strong, they didn't carry any murderous intent. "For the sake of your names, you are allowed to join the Strongest Sect." Jun Changxiao took out the entry form he carried with him. The Tegu sect is in urgent need of talented martial artists. Since the two martial kings have come to seek refuge, they will definitely welcome them warmly. For the sake of their names. Ning Duxing and Ning Duzu looked at each other. Their expressions were a little interesting. Ding. Sect members. 5002/10,000 point. Ding. Sect contribution value. 5002/10,000 point. After accepting the two, Jun Changxiao said, "Let's go. Follow me back to the Strongest Sect." Yes. The two Ning brothers bowed. Judging from the tone, it is obvious that he has entered the role of a disciple of the Tegu sect. This made Sect Master Jun secretly mutter in his heart, "Are they really coming to join him sincerely?" The eldest brother Ning Duxing is more cheerful and good at talking, while his brother Ning Duzu is more indifferent and has only said yes from beginning to end. "What realm are you in?" Jun Changxiao asked on the way. "Report to Sect Master." Ning Duxing said, "Both of us are now 5th grade martial kings. TSK. To casual cultivators without any sect or school can achieve martial kings and break through to the 5th grade. They must have extraordinary opportunities." Speaking of opportunities, Sect Master Jun thought of Ren Shan, the lucky fish. Is it because he was accepted into the Tegu sect that good luck will come and make the martial kings join him? Sect Master. In the hall, Li Qingyang transmitted a voice in surprise. "These two martial kings, are they really picked up on the road?" "Yeah." Jun Changxiao said. Li Qingyang's mouth twitched. The headmaster went to Huayang City and came back with two martial kings. It was incredible. Jiangzi sent a message. "Headmaster, I have heard of these two people. They seem to be from the southeast state. They have been walking in the rivers and lakes for many years and are called the Ning family's two robbers." Jun Changxiao was surprised and said, "Are they robbers?" Jiangzi said, "They specialize in robbing the rich to help the poor, so they are called robbers. Later, they offended too many people and could not survive in the southeast state, so they began to wander around. The people called them the Ning family's two heroes. The martial king's circle is so small. Those who are a little famous must be known by their peers. So that's it." Jun Changxiao suddenly realized. At this moment, he finally understood why the two brothers came to him. Why? Because they defended Qingyang City and protected countless people. Since these two people are chivalrous and righteous, they must be moved by what they did and would rather condescend to be a disciple of the Iron Bone School. Hey. Jun Changxiao thought to himself, if there are more chivalrous people like this in the world, why should I worry about not being able to recruit talented people? You're overthinking. The system said, people like this are rare in the Xinjiang continent, where martial arts is respected. Jun Changxiao ignored it and gave an order, saying, King Guiyang, you are responsible for arranging these two people. Yes. Li King Guiyang took the Ning brothers to the inner courtyard and informed them of the sect's affairs one by one. King Wu, our Tegu sect is getting stronger and stronger. Even such a strong man is willing to become our disciple. We can't embarrass the sect master either. We need to practice hard. The disciples of the Tegu sect came upon hearing the news, all of them whispering. In the past, they, who were born in ordinary families, never thought that one day they would be in the same sect with the martial king strongman, and they could have such close contact. Medicine Garden. With the expansion of Elder Way, it has reached a scale of 1,000 acres. Jun Changxiao walked over, looking at the rich spiritual energy gathering in the sky, and his eyes suddenly rose with pride. The Tegu Mountain, which was originally a deserted place, has undergone earth-shaking changes under his care. It is absolutely full of a sense of accomplishment. Just wait. Sect Master Jun secretly vowed, I will develop this mountain that is not passed on by the scriptures into a martial arts holy land, so that everyone from all directions can come to worship. The system said, this goal is as difficult as making the sect the strongest sect in the Xinjiang continent. Difficult. It is challenging. Jun Changxiao said. Isn't it just the opening hell mode? Since I have been entrusted with such a fate, I will never give up, and will never surrender. Old Wendy. Jun Changxiao said, I have some high-level seeds here. I will plant them in a medicinal field. Yes. Old Wendy took the seeds, and looked at them carefully. How long will it take to mature? Jun Changxiao asked. Old Wendy said, 1 month. 1 month. It's not too long, and it can be waited for. Old Wendy did not plant the seeds directly in the medicinal field, but placed them in the seed incubation pool for incubation first. Jun Changxiao returned to the courtyard. At this time, a ding reminder sound came from his ears. AI Shangni gave a lot of ready-made medicinal materials that could be used to refine the middle grade key gathering pill, so he had already started refining on the way back to the sect. In the study, Xia Longlong was still sleeping, with no signs of waking up. Jun Changxiao sat down and took out the middle grade key gathering pill he had just refined from his space ring. His spiritual thoughts enveloped it, and he murmured, the spiritual energy is so abundant. The medicinal materials that AI Shangni gave were all ordinary goods, and the pills refined were also ordinary, and the speed of increasing spiritual power was only 30 times. Let the inner disciples take these pills first. The next day, Jun Changxiao had an idea and transferred all the hundreds of middle grade key gathering pills he had refined into the pill machine. Martial arts arena. The melody of the divine song sounded. Jun Changxiao led the disciples to dance, while the Ning brothers, who had just joined the Tegu sect, were ashamed. After the dance, they wished they could find a crack in the ground to crawl into. There was no way. Morning exercises and dancing were a major feature of the Tegu sect, and even the king of martial arts could not escape it. Chapter 496, 10,000 Swords Return. How could a strong man like the king of martial arts be a disciple in the sect? So Sect Master Jun began to consider what position to assign to them. Hall Master? It seems that there is no other hall for them to manage for the time being. The system suggested, the sect is short of elders, why not appoint 2 elders? It's okay. Jun Changxiao also considered it, but he held his chin and said, it can't be given right after the entry, it needs to be carefully examined. How to examine? After thinking about it, it was decided to let the Ning brothers teach the disciples first. Jiangzi was immediately happy when he got the news. As the only elder of the sect, he would give lectures every once in a while to guide the disciples in the maze of martial arts. At first, Jiangzi didn't take it seriously and even thought it was a good job. Until he met Shangwen's and Iao, it was the beginning of the tragedy. This girl with extremely high attainments in martial arts, with as many questions as the stars in the sky, made Elder Jiang have a splitting headache and live a life worse than death. Every time he went to the martial arts hall, he had to be determined to go to the battlefield and never come back. Being able to torture our Elder Jiang like this, it shows how terrifying it is that Shangwen's in Iao asks questions when she doesn't understand. Now, the head of the sect has sent 2 martial arts kings to teach the disciples martial arts. Isn't it equivalent to escaping from the sea of suffering and being completely liberated? Jiangzi almost got so excited that he had a big drink in the cafeteria to celebrate. The head of the sect asked the Ning brothers to start by teaching the disciples. The probation period is 1 month. If they perform well, it is not impossible to be appointed as elders. After making arrangements, he began to focus on cultivation. However, because they are the double kings of sword and martial arts, not only do they consume a lot of resources, but they also need a long time. Practicing step by step is still too slow after all. Jun Changxiao murmured, if you complete the task and reward the experience symbol to break through, that is the kingly way. The system said, you will be so happy. Jun Changxiao ignored him and began to think about the hidden tasks completed during this period to see if there are any similar series of tasks to eliminate harm for the people. As a result, there are too many hidden tasks related to idioms. After thinking about it, I have no clue at all. The system said, hidden tasks require natural flow, so the host should focus on the right path. Jun Changxiao retracted his unrealistic thoughts and skillfully opened the intermediate mall. After buying a lot of recipes last time, I haven't finished reading them all because of my low contribution points. What a pity. The subsequent products are not worth buying. Jun Changxiao's mind moved and spent 100 contribution points to refresh them all. His luck was too bad. After browsing the new products, he didn't see any decent products. Master Jun was disappointed and said, with 5 points of luck, how come I didn't get any good things? The system said, luck points only increase the host's luck, and it's not a 100% chance of getting good things. Jun Chang pulled down them all, and his eyes lit up when new products appeared. The second product in the first row was a secret book with 4 vigorous and powerful characters written on it. Wanjian Gizeng. Swordsmanship. This is swordsmanship. Jun Changxiao hurriedly clicked on the detailed introduction. Item, Wanjian Gizeng. Introduction, a forbidden sword skill from a certain clan, which was later modified and improved by a mysterious great power, and its power is unpredictable. Effect, it is divided into 3 realms. The first realm is all swords return to 1, the second realm is all things are swords, and the third realm is, if I were a sword, there would be no sword in the world. Advantages. After the modification, this skill is extremely powerful and can be called the best sword skill. Disadvantages. It is difficult to learn and master and consumes a lot of energy. Even if you have mastered it, you should not use it easily without the cultivation of Sword King or above, otherwise you will suffer backlash and be injured at the least, or even die at the worst. Price. 2000 contribution points. Level, none. Jun Changxiao was stunned when he saw the level introduction. Judging from the introduction and advantages, this must be a very awesome sword skill. How could there be no level? The system explained, the vast universe is filled with powerful people. Some martial arts created by powerful people may be beyond the system's calculation range, so it is impossible to give an accurate level classification. Jun Changxiao was surprised and said, even the system can't calculate it. This Wanjian Gizeng must be super awesome. Ding. The host consumes 2000 contribution points and obtains Wanjian Gizeng X1, which has been transferred to the space ring. Ding. Sect contribution value. 2802/10,000 point. After purchasing Wanjian Gizeng, the system did not automatically match it to the sect's skills. It can be seen that this sword skill is not suitable for disciples to practice in large quantities. Think about it. After all, it is a sword martial art. Among the disciples of the Tigu sect, Zhao Hang is the only one who has the qualifications for swordsmanship. Swish. Sect Master Jun waved his hand, took out the sword skills that exuded sword power, and couldn't wait to read it. However, after only looking at the first level, Wanjian Gizeng, he felt like he understood it but not quite, and couldn't help but sigh. It's a bit difficult. The martial arts bought in the mall, no matter how high the level is, are easy to understand, with the exception of Lingjian Shenju and Wanjian Gizeng. Or, are all sword martial arts so profound? I have to learn it even if it's difficult. In the following time, Jun Changxiao focused his mind on comprehending sword skills and didn't even practice. However, Wan Jiangai is too profound. Sect Master Jun practiced in the room for 5 days and only understood a little bit. This question is too difficult. He held his head and shouted to the sky, I can't do it, I can't do it. Everyone thought that Sect Master Jun was a monster now, the king of martial arts and swordsmanship, but they didn't know that he was stumped by a sword skill. This also shows that there are countless martial arts in the world, and many of them are profound and unfathomable. I just don't believe this. Sect Master Jun and Wan Jiangizan were busy, leaving the sect affairs to Li Qingyang and Li Luoqiu, and focusing on comprehension. It shouldn't be. Why is this question so difficult? Every once in a while, when the disciples passed by the courtyard, they occasionally heard the sound of collapse, and they couldn't help but secretly wonder, what's wrong with the sect master? Time flew, and a month passed in a flash. The medicinal materials for refining the middle grade key gathering pill matured under the hard cultivation of Elder Wei and the members of the medicine hall. Sect Master Jun still stayed in the room, and never came out. Second brother, Liu Wanshi sent the food as usual, and worriedly said, the sect master still locked himself in the room, and didn't eat for a few days. Is he seriously ill? Li Qingyang almost fell down. This little girl still speaks so innocently. Li Qingyang shook his head and said, I didn't expect that the departure of the senior sister would bring such a big blow to the headmaster. If Jun Changxiao heard it, he would definitely kick over. Abnormal. This seat is comprehending advanced sword skills, not because of Lu Qian. Senior brother, Suzuomo said, let's go and persuade the headmaster not to let him miss the senior sister too much. Okay. Li Qingyang led the disciples to the courtyard. Just as they walked to the door, they heard a loud ha-ha-ha laughter coming from the room. Liu Wanshi said nervously, the headmaster is not crazy. Bang. Suddenly, the door was pushed open. A cold and fierce sword force erupted, blowing everyone's black hair flying. Tap. Jun Changxiao strode out, looked up to the sky and laughed. I understand this question. Li Qingyang and other disciples were stunned. After not seeing each other for a month, the headmaster's hair was messy and sloppy, just like a street beggar. Master, Suzuomo said weakly, are you okay? Jun Changxiao lifted the messy hair covering his eyes and laughed. Today, I will let you see what it means to unite all the swords. Swish. He jumped up and flew to the top of the hall. As soon as he landed on it, his feet slipped and he fell head first. Plop. Chapter 497 Power Fried Rice. Man is iron and rice is steel. If you don't eat for a meal, you will be hungry. Master Jun, who hadn't eaten for 6 or 7 days, was about to show off in front of his disciples, but as soon as he landed on the hall, he felt weak and fell from it. He failed to show off and lost a lot of rice. How sad. In the cafeteria, Jun Changxiao, who had a big bump on his head, was eating voraciously, and there were several plates next to him. Master, eat slowly, don't choke. Liu Wanshi said worriedly. After eating a few more dishes and 2 bowls of rice, Jun Changxiao put down his chopsticks, wiped his mouth with a tissue and said, Doo, your cooking skills are getting better and better. It's not that his cooking skills are good, but that he has been hungry for too long. Even a bowl of cabbage stewed in water can taste like delicacies from the mountains and the sea. Master, Liu Wanshi blinked and said, the cooking competition in Southwest Yangzhou will start in a month. Jun Changxiao scratched his head and said awkwardly, if you didn't mention it, I would have forgotten it. He had experienced so many things during this period, how could he remember them? Liu Wanshi's eyes were full of resentment, and she said frustratedly, I knew that the master didn't take it seriously. Don't worry. Jun Changxiao patted her head and smiled gently, I will take you to participate, and let the world know what a cooking god is. I promised before that I would definitely take Liu Wanshi. What's more, the matter in Zhejiang County has been resolved, and there is nothing else to do. Just now, I can spare some time to go out and take a walk. Maybe by chance, I can pick up another 4988 Martial Kings with monster qualifications. Pa. Just when Jun Changxiao was dreaming, Liu Wanshi put a bowl of fried rice on the table and said with a smile, "This is the fried rice I newly developed. After eating it, you can increase your strength. Master, please try it." Jun Changxiao suddenly became nervous. I once ate the power food made by the little girl and ended up being carried to the medicine hall for emergency treatment. It was definitely a psychological trauma. Liu Wanshi said with a serious face, "Master, I now know a lot of medicinal materials. The food developed this time must not be toxic. Please eat it with confidence." Jun Changxiao was still worried, but seeing the little girl's expectation and not refusing, he had to pick up the fried rice and then walked out of the cafeteria, called Suzaomo who was playing football outside, and said, "Eat the fried rice." I didn't dare to do it myself, so I asked the disciples to do it. "This is really particular, Master," Suzaomo said. "Disciple just had a meal. I'm not hungry yet. Eat it when I tell you to, don't talk nonsense." "Oh." Suzaomo took the fried rice. Just as she was about to pick up the chopsticks to eat, she heard Liu Wanshi smile and said, "Senior brother, this is the power food I developed. After eating it, you can increase your strength." "Ah." Suzaomo was stunned. The scene of the master foaming at the mouth, twitching all over, and being carried into the medicine hall suddenly appeared in front of her. "Master." He almost cried and said, "Can't I not eat it? I must eat it." Jun Changxiao took out a pill and said, "This is a detoxification pill. If you find something wrong, you can take it immediately. The detoxification pills are ready. I must be determined to die today to test the poison on myself." "Master." Suzaomo held the fried rice. His eyes flashed with determination and said, "I will still be a disciple of the Iron Bone Sect in my next life." As he said that, he swallowed a mouthful resolutely. Gradually, Suzaomo's face changed and his muscles began to twist, giving people the feeling that he was poisoned. Master Jun hurriedly stuffed the detoxification pill into his mouth. However, Suzaomo took the chopsticks and ate the fried rice, and then said ecstatically, "Master, this fried rice is not only delicious, but it can also increase strength." Jun Changxiao was stunned. Bang! Suzaomo punched the test machine, and the strength value was 400,000 pounds. During the month that sect Master Jun was comprehending the way of the sword, his realm broke through from the 6th rank to the 7th rank of Wuzang, and the strength value of the test was 370,000 Jun. In other words, after eating Liu Wanshi's fried rice, his strength increased by 30,000 Jun. Some people may say that it is not much. You know, this is just a bowl of fried rice, not an elixir, nor a talisman for increasing strength. After eating it, Wuzong's strength increased by more than 30,000 Jun, which is absolutely incredible. I'll try it. Jun Changxiao ordered Liu Wanshi to make another bowl of strength fried rice, and punch the test machine, and the strength was displayed as 4.4 million Jun. 400,000 Jun more than before. The system said, the fried rice made by this little girl contains many kinds of spiritual energy of heaven and earth, which can provide 10% of the host's strength. Compared with the several times increase of the talisman for increasing strength, the strength fried rice made by Liu Wanshi is definitely not worth mentioning, but it also makes Jun Changxiao very happy. Food can be made casually, and it doesn't consume any medicinal materials. Eating a meal can increase combat power by 10%, which is definitely a very cool thing. How long can it last? Jun Changxiao asked. After analysis, the system said, based on the energy consumption of food in the host, it should last for 2 hours. Not bad. Jun Changxiao looked at Liu Wanshi and said, Dudu, your power fried rice is really amazing. Liu Wanshi smiled brightly after receiving the praise from the headmaster. Jun Changxiao said, if it can be mass-produced, it can not only be used to satisfy hunger, but also to increase strength. It is simply killing 2 birds with 1 stone. I have mastered the essentials, and frying a few large pots is not a problem. Liu Wanshi said. Then what are you waiting for? Jun Changxiao urged, hurry up and fry as much as you can. Liu Wanshi's power fried rice is really mysterious. However, there are also flaws. You must serve enough and eat it all to achieve the effect of increasing strength. If you can increase your strength after eating a bite, it would be even better. Jun Changxiao said. Liu Wanshi said, Headmaster, I can improve it. She learned a lot of medicinal material knowledge from Wei Liao, which allowed her to do experiments unscrupulously. Jun Changxiao said, then work hard and try to make fried rice that can increase your strength with just a small bite. Yes. Liu Wanshi nodded heavily and said, I will. Jun Changxiao distributed several large pots of rice that had just been fried to his disciples, asking them to take a large bowl each and store it in their space rings. Other martial artists either put elixirs, crystal cores, silver bills and various martial arts resources in their rings, but for the disciples of the Tigu sect to put fried rice in their rings, it was not only very strange, but also very fragrant. Because of the fall, Sect Master Jun was not interested in pretending to perform the 10,000 swords return to the sect, but asked the Ning brothers about their teaching of the disciples in the past month. Yes, they performed very well, and the disciples benefited greatly. In view of their performance, Sect Master Jun announced in public that he appointed the Ning brothers as elders. So far, the Tigu sect has 3 elders, all of whom are martial kings. The 5 great sects can't compare. After the appointment, Jun Changxiao came to the medicine hall to receive various medicinal materials. After being nurtured in the seed nurturing pool and carefully cultivated by Elder Wei, the newly matured medicinal herbs are very full of spiritual energy. Ding. Ding. The middle grade key gathering pills are constantly being refined. After Jun Changxiao took one, he determined that the pills made from this kind of high spiritual medicinal herbs can be taken 50 times faster. My Tigu sect has a resource to improve my cultivation faster. It's really unfair if I can't become stronger. Master. Half a month later, Liu Wanshi said, the cooking competition is about to start. When are we going? Tomorrow. Jun Changxiao said with a smile. Okay. The next day, Liu Wanshi prepared a sumptuous meal for the master and herself. After eating, the two of them set off peacefully. The place they were going to was the Xian'ou King city. It has been almost 2 years since I traveled to the other world. This is the first time Jun Changxiao has visited the largest city in Yangzhou in the southwest, so he is also very much looking forward to what is so special about this king city. Chapter 498 Liu Wanshi's identity. There was still half a month before the cooking competition in Yangzhou, southwest China. Jun Changxiao set off with Liu Wanshi. He did not take other disciples with him, hoping that they could improve their cultivation as soon as possible. As for the thousands of medium-grade key gathering pills that were refined, they have also been distributed to the pill machine, and disciples can collect them at fixed times. With the development of the sect, Sect Master Jun can almost be entrusted. If there is another device that communicates with the space ring, even if you are not in the sect, you can refine pills, weapons and other items, and distribute them to various machines with one click. Jun Changxiao said secretly. The system said, yes, but it depends on luck to get it. Really? Jun Changxiao's eyes lit up. People are traveling in the Xingyou continent. What should disciples do if they lack pills? Simple. Old Wei sent the cultivated medicinal materials to the equipment, transferred them to the space ring, and after refining, they were sent to the pill machine for supply. Thinking of this, Jun Changxiao is even more looking forward to it. Speaking of which, why doesn't he just hire some pill pharmacists to refine pills? The system's medicine cabinet can completely simplify the process of refining medicine with one click, and the refined medicine is also very good. Why bother to hire an alchemist? Although sect leader Jun is just one person, he can do a variety of things. He can make medicine, weapons, spells, and even spiritual weapons by himself. He is absolutely super versatile. What's more, he doesn't have to do it himself, which can be said to be worry-free and labor-saving. Standing in the beautiful wilderness, Jun Changxiao spread his arms, smelled the intoxicating scent of green grass, and said with emotion, it's not bad to come out and relax. Liu Wanshi sat on the stone, holding her cheek with her hand, her face full of entanglement. What are you thinking about? Jun Changxiao said. Nothing. Liu Wanshi said in a panic. Jun Changxiao sat down and said, since leaving the sect, you have been frowning. Are you worried about something? No. Liu Wan, she said. No, nothing. Jun Changxiao was speechless. Her worries were all written on her face. If I couldn't see it, I would be blind. Let me guess what's on your mind. Jun Changxiao thought for a moment and said, you must have an extraordinary identity to be able to make fried rice that increases strength, right? What extraordinary identity can I have? Liu Wan's two big eyes kept shaking when she said this. Jun Changxiao saw it and continued, as far as I know, there is also a family head in Yangzhou, southwest China, who mainly cooks. The food he makes can improve martial arts strength. Liu Wan, she said, Master, you are talking about the Yang family in Xianyuking City, right? Yes. Jun Changxiao said. Liu Wan, she said, Master, do you think I'm from the Yang family? It's hard for me to believe that an ordinary person can make fried rice that increases strength. Jun Changxiao said. This sentence means that he believes that the little girl is from the Yang family. Otherwise, how could she develop such a magical food? Okay. Liu Wan, she said, I confess, I have a relationship with the Yang family. Jun Changxiao was not surprised. After taking in this girl, Lu Qian had doubts. Although he didn't take it seriously, he would definitely think about it when he was bored. Not only Liu Wan, sect leader Jun has thought about many disciples. The one who thought about it the most was Lu Qian, because his intuition told him that the story behind this disciple must be complicated. Until now, Jun Changxiao still believes that such a talented woman joined the Tegu sect to avoid being hunted down by her enemies. So when Lu Qian went out to train, she said that, no matter what danger she encountered, the sect would be her strongest backing. I don't care who the enemy is, or how strong he is. If someone dares to hurt his disciples, he will use all the strength of the sect, rather than kill them, to the death. Sect leader Jun's character is to protect his children. It can be seen from the fact that his disciples were bullied by the evil sect of Huaiyang County in the Death Valley, and were directly wiped out. Just a relationship? Jun Changxiao said. Liu Wan, she lowered her head, clenched her hands together, and whispered, Master, I'm actually the illegitimate daughter of the Yang family. She didn't know how much courage she had to say the last 3 words, and even her body trembled slightly. Really? Jun Chang smiled and responded. He guessed that Liu Wan, she had a relationship with the Yang family, but he didn't expect that she was an illegitimate daughter. In the past world, illegitimate children were not good to be mentioned, and they would be pointed at by others. In the other world, it must be even worse. My mother is an ordinary person. Liu Wan, she said, I met that bastard, and then I was born. This bastard must be his father. Later, my mother died of a serious illness, leaving me alone. That bastard found me, and took me back to the Yang family. The more Liu Wan she spoke, the more hatred she had in her eyes, because entering the Yang family was the beginning of her nightmare. Jun Changxiao could also guess it. An illegitimate daughter entering a big family will inevitably be targeted by her own people. Yes. Liu Wan, she was bullied by her own people a lot, and being called a bastard was the most common. Because of her background, the little Lalita could tolerate it. But the more she tolerated it, the worse it got. This made her unbearable, and she quietly left the Yang family one day. In order not to be found, Liu Wan, she came to the most remote Qingyang County, which led to the scene of meeting Jun Changxiao in Qingyang City. She always followed her mother's surname. Although the surname Awakens represents honor, she didn't want it at all. If she could choose, Liu Wan, she even wanted to abandon the blood of the Yang family, even if it meant being the poorest ordinary person. However, blood is innate. How can you say no to it? Liu Wan's mother is very ordinary, but she inherited her father's talent for cooking. Although she only lived in the Yang family for more than a year, she has extraordinary understanding. There are really gifted people in this world. Liu Wan, she is one of them. Although she has never entered the Yang family's kitchen, she can teach herself just by watching secretly. If she is professionally taught, her cooking skills will definitely make great progress. It's a pity. Because she is an illegitimate daughter, she is destined to be unqualified to learn the cooking skills of the Yang family's ancestors. If you don't let me learn, I'm too lazy to learn. Liu Wan she began to think about it by herself, and relying solely on her own talent, she successfully developed fried rice that can increase strength. If the Yang family knew about this, it would definitely cause quite a stir. After all, it is incredible that one can develop meals that improve martial arts strength without learning the recipes of the Yang family. Thinking of the past that she could not bear to look back on, Liu Wan she was depressed. She was not like Long Xiang, who had to prove to the bully when she was wronged. She just wanted to cut off her relationship with the Yang family forever. However, the cooking competition was held in Xianyu Royal City, and the Yang family would definitely send their direct lineage to participate. What should she do? Jun Changxiao touched her head and said with a smile, "This time when we go to Xianyu Royal City, if the Yang family dares to bully you, I will make them pay a heavy price." The flag is set. It seems that going to Xianyu Royal City will be another pretentious journey. Chapter 499. Do you have any objection to me killing him? There was still plenty of time. Jun Changxiao took Liu Wanshi to walk slowly, passing by towns to experience the customs of the other world. But he didn't see the good side, only the dark side. The village was okay, the people were simple. In a slightly larger town, you can always see some martial artists with certain realms bullying the weak, and bullying men and women. Some families are the worst among them. They keep thugs and servants, and they are unscrupulous bullies walking on the streets. There are also government organizations in Xinjiang continent, which are only used to restrain ordinary people. For big families and big clans, they can only turn a blind eye. What Jun Changxiao saw and heard made him deeply realize that, although Qingyang County is small, the 8 city lords at least have something to do, and the outside world is so cruel. Bang! In a certain town, a fierce warrior kicked out an old singing man and said, "It's your blessing that my son likes your daughter, so why are you talking so much nonsense, Dad?" A 15 or 16-year-old girl cried out, surrounded by several evil men with smiles on their faces. These people were the thugs hired by the Zen family. The young man in brocade clothes standing next to him, who looked decent, was the son of the Zen family, a complete dandy. Passers-by on the street all shook their heads secretly, thinking that this girl was doomed today. "Girl." Young Master Zen smiled and said, "If you follow me, I will naturally not treat you badly." As he said that, he walked over, his eyes flashing with obscene light. The girl was frightened, but because there were thugs around to stop her, she had no way to retreat. "Master." At this moment, a crisp voice came. "Does this count as molesting a decent woman in broad daylight?" "Yes," someone said. Young Master Zen frowned slightly. He looked in the direction of the voice and saw a man and a woman walking on the street. The man was about 18 or 19 years old, and the girl was about 11 or 12 years old. Seeing the petite and cute girl, Master Zen's eyes suddenly lit up, and he smiled wickedly. "What a beautiful girl, Master." The girl frowned and said, "This guy has such a disgusting look. I'll help you beat him up." The man said, "Beat me?" Master Zen laughed. The group of thugs surrounding the girl also laughed. Bang! The sound of fists suddenly rang out. The smiles on the faces of the group of thugs raised by the Zen family froze. Because the seemingly weak boy was already standing in front of the master, and his fist hit the master's chest. It was so fast that he didn't even see it. "Does it hurt?" the boy said with a harmless face, showing a fist. Although Master Zen was still standing there, his face was gradually becoming ferocious, and he said, "It hurts. Why don't you fly out if it hurts?" Master Zen rose from the ground, then flew backwards, and fell more than 30 meters away, holding his chest, and screaming like a pig being slaughtered. The people on the street were stunned. He was hit by a punch, and it took him a long time to fly out. "What kind of operation is this, Master?" The martial artists hidden in the crowd were secretly shocked. In their opinion, to be able to knock Master Zen out like this, he must have a very high control of strength. But that was the young master of the Zen family. It would be difficult to get away unscathed if you beat him up on someone else's territory. Sure enough, the Zen family thugs came to their senses, rushed up angrily, and surrounded the young man, glaring at him as if they wanted to kill him with their eyes. "Dare to hit my young master, you are alive." Before a martial artist finished speaking, a cold palm flew directly over. The young man slapped him in the face and then swung his other hand, hitting the faces of the surrounding martial artists with incredible precision. Pa. 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 In an instant, 6 or 7 thugs of the Zen family flew out. The people on the street were completely dumbfounded. The young man clearly kept a certain distance from the Zen family thugs, but when he attacked, they felt as if they were close at hand. Master, master. The casual cultivators were shocked. Young Master Zen, who got up from the ground, covered his chest with his eyes and said, "Damn guy, wait for me." He turned around and fled in a panic. He wanted to go home for help, to call all the family members to come over and cut this guy into pieces. Dad, the head of the Zen family, who was talking to a guest in the hall, heard his son's cry, and his face suddenly became gloomy. Dad, young Master Zen staggered in, tears in his eyes, and said, "I was beaten outside." Pa. The head of the Zen family slammed the table and said angrily, "Who is so bold?" "Me." There was a sound outside. Young Master Zen was startled and looked outside in a hurry. He saw that the boy who beat him actually followed him in. He gritted his teeth and said, "Dad, it's him." The head of the Zen family strode out, his eyes full of murderous intent, and said, "Boy, how did you get in?" "Walked in." The boy said. The head of the Zen family looked extremely ugly. "Are the gate guards idiots? They let an outsider walk in unscrupulously. They are idiots." Because they were all beaten into idiots, lying on the ground with their bodies twitching. "Boy." The visiting guest also walked out, stood with his hands behind his back, and said lightly, "You beat young Master Zen, and trespassed into the Zen family mansion. You are really brave, Master Zen." He said, "Let son take action on your behalf, and teach this ignorant kid a lesson." The head of the Zen family said, "Thank you. This is a martial arts master level elder of a 5th-rate sect. If he can personally take action for his family, it will definitely be very face-saving." "Boy," elder son said coldly, "kneel down quickly and apologize to the head of the Zen family. You can still keep your life, otherwise." At this point, his voice stopped abruptly, because his peripheral vision swept across the waist badge hanging on the boy's waist, which was engraved with 4 words, Iron Bone. Elder son's face changed drastically, and he said in surprise, You are a disciple of the Iron Bone School?" "Iron Bone School?" The head of the Zen family was stunned. He had naturally heard of the sect that was in the limelight recently. Coincidentally, the two were just talking about the Iron Bone School and the fact that the head of the sect led his disciples to Huayan County to destroy 4 evil sects. Swish. The boy appeared in front of Elder Son and punched him. Bang. Elder Son's face suddenly became ferocious after being hit hard in the abdomen, and then he fell down like a puddle of mud. Gap. The head of the Zen family was stunned. How did this guy get here?" Bang. The young man reached out his hand, clasped the neck of the head of the Zen family, looked at the fallen elder son, and said, "Do you have any objection to me killing him? This seat? Question mark. Could he be Jun Changxiao?" Elder son endured the pain and said hurriedly, "No objection. No objection." Looking at the head of the Zen family, the young man said lightly, "The upper beam is not straight, and the lower beam is crooked. You are not a good bird either." Snap. With 5 fingers exerting force, the head of the Zen family did not even have the chance to speak, and his head fell directly. "Dad." Young Master Zen was terrified. The young man threw the body away, walked in front of him, and said, "Don't cheat Dad in the next life." Whoosh. The sword flashed, and the head fell to the ground. The town was completely in an uproar, because the head of the Zen family and his evil son had their heads hanging on the city gate, and 4 bloody words were left on the wall. Iron Bones. Iron Bones? Is it the Iron Bone Sect of Huayan County? 4 evil sects were destroyed in Huayan County, and similar handwriting was left behind. It must be this. As everyone was discussing, the young man who took the girl away heard a crisp voice. Ding. Congratulations to the host for completing the hidden task. Punish evil and eliminate traitors 5, and gaining 500 contribution points. Ding. Contribution value of the sect. 4,802/10,000 point. Ding. Congratulations to the host for completing the Punish Evil and Eliminate Traitors series of tasks, gaining 2,000 contribution points, and being awarded the title of Light of Chivalry. Ding. Contribution value of the sect. 6802/10,000. Chapter 500, Inheritance from the Ancient Times, the Treasure of the Sect. On the way to Xianyu Royal City, Jun Changxiao encountered a group of hooligans bullying the weak, almost beating them to death. Finally, he punished them at Liu Wanshi's request. As a result, he unexpectedly completed the hidden task of punish evil and eliminate traitors too. The first time this task appeared was to destroy the Black Eagle Hall. Now that it was completed again, it made Master Jun realize that it was a series of tasks just like eliminating harm for the people. So, Master Jun turned aloof from his own business and became a knight who traveled the world with a sword. As long as he passed by the city and met someone who bullied men and women, he would definitely give him a beating. For the extremely vicious ones, he would kill them without mercy. The system once said, without such a task, you will definitely not do good things. Nonsense. Jun Changxiao said, in this dangerous world, if there is no reward, you will definitely not do good things. In the past few days, he taught a lot of bullies and punished a lot of hooligans. The tasks of punishing evil and eliminating traitors were completed one after another, and each time he was given 500 contribution points, which was very cool. In order to find the target better, Jun Changxiao hurried on his way and asked around. He learned that the son of the Zen family in Tangling Town was a dandy who did all kinds of evil. So he locked on the target and rushed over with Liu Wanshi. The rumor was true. As soon as he entered the town, he saw the son of Zen leading people to bully men and women. Especially when the father of the son learned that his son was bullied, he was full of murderous intent. It was obvious that he was not a good person. Sect leader Jun didn't stop and solved the problem together with the father and son. In this way, all the tasks of punishing evil and eliminating traitors were completed, and a total of 4,000 contribution points were obtained, and a title of chivalrous knight was given. Comfortable. Sect leader Jun, who was walking on the road, opened the system panel and put on the new title. The luck value increased from 5 points at the beginning to 10 points. Sect leader Liu Wanshi said, killing people and leaving iron bones. Others will know that it was us who did it. Jun Changxiao said, I want others to know. The system said speechlessly, aren't you afraid of causing trouble? Afraid. Jun Changxiao said. The system crashed and said, since you are afraid, you still left clues. Is the host courting death? Jun Chang laughed and said, if the Zen family wants to take revenge and can't find the murderer, will they vent their anger on the people I saved? The system was silent for a while and said, yes. So I want to let them know who killed the person and who to take revenge on. Jun Chang laughed and shrugged. So that's what I thought. Besides, Jun Chang laughed and said, killing these evil people is undoubtedly to eliminate harm for the people. Let the world know that it was done by my Iron Bone Sect faction. Wouldn't it also enhance my prestige? It really is. At this moment, everyone in Tangling Town is discussing the Iron Bone Sect faction with deep admiration in their hearts. Master Zen has been dominating the town for a long time. There are countless good women who have been harmed by him. Now that he has been killed by the Iron Bone faction, it is a great pleasure for the people. If the system has prestige, my chivalrous and righteous deeds will definitely increase a lot. Jun Chang laughed. The system poured cold water and said, it will also bring unnecessary trouble. Ling Yaozang, elder son, who was injured in the Zen family, walked into the hall with a pale face. Elder Sunday. An elder asked in surprise, what's wrong with you? Elder son said, I was beaten. The man immediately said angrily, who is so bold? Don't mention it. Elder son said with an ugly face, I almost came back alive. Swish. At this moment, the leader of Ling Yaozang walked in and said coldly, who did it? The elders of the sect were beaten, so they naturally couldn't let it go. The other elders also walked in. Their eyes were full of anger, and it seemed that they were going to go out together to seek revenge on the murderer. Leader. Elder son said, it's Jun Changxiao. Jun Changxiao? An elder said coldly, who is this? Why haven't I heard of it? Wait. Jun Changxiao? It seems a little familiar. The leader of Lingyao sect asked in surprise. The leader of the Tigu Zheng sect? Yes. Elder son said, it's him. The faces of the elders changed drastically. Ling Yaozong had naturally heard of the leader of the Tegu sect, who had been in the limelight recently. In particular, it was widely reported that he defeated 3 martial kings in Zhejiang County with his strong cultivation outside Qingyang City. Unexpectedly, it was him who injured elder son. Ahem. The anger of the leader of Ling Yaozong dissipated at once, and he said, "Third elder, how is the cultivation of the disciples recently? Report to the leader." The third elder said, "The cultivation is not bad, and many disciples have made breakthroughs." The other elders who were furious also calmed down instantly and talked in a low voice, completely forgetting that elder son was injured. The 4 evil sects in Huaiyang County were destroyed, and the peak martial king of the Temple of Killing Gods was scared away. The Tegu sect can't be provoked, can't be provoked. After completing the series of tasks of punishing evil and eliminating traitors, sect leader Jun no longer chose to take the official road, but took the small road. When there is benefit, he is a chivalrous man, and when there is no benefit, he just ignores it. This guy is so realistic. Gaining a lot of contribution points gave Jun Changxiao the courage to open the intermediate mall again. What a pity. The last refresh only gave me a Wanji and Gizeng, and there were no more valuable items. I could only spend 100 contribution points to refresh again. Among the new items, one thing caught the attention of sect leader Jun, that is, the Chinese recipe book. Is there such a thing in the mall? You can't imagine it, but you can refresh it. Clicking on the introduction, I learned that this Chinese recipe book records 8 major cuisines, namely Shandong cuisine, Sichuan cuisine, Cantonese cuisine, Jiangsu cuisine, Zhejiang cuisine, Fujian cuisine, Hunan cuisine, and Anu cuisine. The price is 1000 contribution points. You can buy it for do to learn, so that Chinese cuisine can go to the world, and to the other world. Jun Chang smiled secretly. Ding. The host consumes 1000 contribution points, and obtains 1 Chinese recipe book, which has been transferred to the space ring. Ding. Contribution value of the sect. 5702/10,000 point. Beep beep. Jun Changxiao took out the recipe book and said, "I have a recipe book here, you can take it and study it." Recipe book. Liu Wan, she pointed to her head and said with a smile, "Master, I have a recipe book in here." Ha. The little girl is quite confident. Jun Changxiao said, "My recipe book is a gathering of heroes." Really? Liu Wan, she took the Chinese recipe book with some suspicion, then flipped through it casually, and then immersed in it. After a long time, the little girl exclaimed, "Master, many of the dishes in this recipe book, I have never heard of them. The recipe book is passed down from ancient times, and it is the treasure of my Tegu sect." Jun Changxiao said, "Today, I will give it to you, hoping that you can carry it forward. Inherited from ancient times, the treasure of the sect?" Liu Wan's eyes widened, and she immediately hugged the Chinese recipe book tightly, and said with great seriousness, "Disciple will obey the order of the master, and will definitely promote the recipe book." The system said, "Shameless." End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.